The King's Avatar audiobook by Kevin the King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown Chapter 281 Confusion Christmas Eve. Even though Chen Guo had decorated the internet cafe in a Christmas fashion, it had only been done for attracting business. Her dinner was even simpler and cruder than usual. She took her bowl to the computer and finished eating it there. She still had to count how many Christmas thieves Ye Xiu would eventually end up gathering. The count continued to grow. Chen Guo stopped being astonished at every increase. She currently felt like she was watching a thriller. Just how many Christmas thieves would be gathered? That was the answer she was waiting for. Meanwhile, the other experts in the 10th server's Sin City were no longer able to sit still any longer. The number of players who came to spectate grew larger and larger. With such a long train running around in Sin City streets and alleys, no matter how bad the visibility was in the city, it was still possible to see an abnormal situation like this quite easily. What everyone had thought was impossible was slowly becoming a reality. What is he trying to do? The leaders of the big guilds were all discussing this. The most sensitive among them was Excellent Dynasty. They could already see the effects from Lord Grimm's movements from the data. Their hunting progress in Sin City had slowed down. Christmas thieves continued to accumulate under Lord Grimm. No matter how hard Excellent Dynasty searched, it was becoming harder and harder to find available Christmas thieves to kill. Even worse, none of the Christmas thieves Lord Grimm pulled were dying. If they weren't dying, then they wouldn't respawn, which meant that the number of Christmas thieves the other players could kill in Sin City was becoming less and less. Excellent Dynasty was leading on the Christmas hunting leaderboards and needed Sin City to form a solid foundation. But now, their foundations were slowly crumbling. Their advantage in experts was unable to be displayed. Chen Yehui obviously didn't want to lose their advantage. After sending out Wind following Sword and his troops, he picked other experts to react as well. And this time they weren't going to just hinder him. If they found Lord Grimm, then they were to immediately kill him. After Lord Grimm died, they would then be able to gather many Christmas thieves. This profit was enough to make Chen Yehui excited. Chen Yehui wasn't the only one with this thought process. In front of such a profit, killing others was bound to happen. Everyone understood that Lord Grimm was a skilled expert, but under this type of situation, what did it matter if he was a god-level expert? As the driver of the train, he didn't have the opportunity to pause for even the slightest bit. With that type of pressure, how was he going to fight with other players? They didn't even need to fight him directly. If they just stalled him, the mob of Christmas thieves would eventually swarm him and crush him into a pulp. The guilds had created their own beautiful plans and then sent out their players to accomplish it. The number of players coming out wasn't few either. After eliminating Lord Grimm, they would immediately scramble for the Christmas thieves. So, the more players, the better. But the reality of the situation wasn't as beautiful as they had anticipated. Wind following Sword, who had been chasing after Lord Grimm's whereabouts the entire time, had discovered the issue long ago. It wasn't hard to find Lord Grimm's general whereabouts. The train parading through the streets was pretty easy to see. However, the train was way too chaotic. Finding out where exactly Lord Grimm was in the train was extraordinarily difficult. Different Christmas thieves ran at different speeds, so there were gaps in their chase. Those who were farther away could no longer even see where Lord Grimm was, but with their eyes automatic searching, they were able to still know where Lord Grimm was. When they chased, they chose the most convenient route, which might not necessarily be Lord Grimm's original route. Players would often see these Christmas thieves chasing Lord Grimm, but the problem was, these thieves' movements were completely out of sync. Some were running east, some were running west, some were climbing over walls. Wind following Sword compiled the reports from the players he had sent out, and then used the map to determine where Lord Grimm was located. Every time he directed players to a location, they would always reply that there was nothing there. This was already his fourth time of receiving nothing there. Wind following Sword's confidence had been struck once again. He was already feeling embarrassed about having the players continue running nowhere. Ye Xiu is moving too quickly. Wind following Sword reported to Ye Xiu. He's using the Christmas thieves' random running movements to create a very confusing situation. We can very easily chase after the thieves, but we can't verify his exact location. What do you mean, you can't find him? Ye Xiu's mood immediately turned sour. Only by luck, when Wind following Sword's spinning spiderweb formation had been broken through, his confidence had already dissipated. After a single match, he had already understood the distance between him and his opponent. After this, even though he continued to persist, the reality was just too cruel. Ye Xiu was still a level higher. Luck wasn't something that anyone could control. Ye Xiu used his movement speed and terrain to cause the Christmas thieves to cause chaos, but if you had good luck and randomly bumped into him, then there was nothing he could do about that. Currently, there really were a few players like that. When they ran past a street, they turned their cameras. Lord Grimm, the players were surprised to discover him. Even though they weren't able to see his id, with a single person in front and countless Christmas thieves behind, if that person leading the mob wasn't Lord Grimm, who else could it be? They then saw Lord Grimm jump, and with a gunshot hop onto the roof. After 3 seconds, all they saw were a bunch of Christmas thieves climbing up the wall. The players immediately ran to the nearby street. There were thieves climbing up the walls by the nearby street too. Lord Grimm was still on the roof. And that rooftop wasn't a place that just anyone could reach. Those who could go went up. Those who couldn't ran along the 2 side streets and hastily called for help. After that, they saw Lord Grimm run onto the street and then jump onto another roof. After doing this several times, the majority of players immediately lost him. A gunner was able to catch him, though. He was also very familiar with going up and down like this, and was able to chase Lord Grimm onto the streets. Lord Grimm began using aerial fire. The gunner began to sweat. When they used aerial fire, they were flying backwards, so they wouldn't use aerial fire to chase. Because if they chased while going backwards, their backs would then be exposed to the opponent's gun. So if you used aerial fire and the opponent used aerial fire, you'd be hit by the opponent's bullets. Under this type of situation, chasing would be very difficult. Everyone knew that Lord Grimm was a great expert. The gunner didn't dare play anything difficult in front of Lord Grimm, so his only choice was to run instead, while reporting the situation to his boss. Those Christmas thieves were also following closely after. From this, the gunner was able to personally feel just how chaotic Ye Xiu's train was. Lord Grimm rushed to the end of a street and then made a right turn, disappearing from the gunner's line of sight. The gunner immediately turned back and used aerial fire to increase the speed. How could he know that Ye Xiu's Lord Grimm would turn around and glance at him? Seeing the gunner use aerial fire, Ye Xiu immediately took advantage of the fact that they were still far from each other to sneakily slip away to a nearby street. This type of trick might not be enough to trick the opponents, but these small details were what allowed Ye Xiu to create such a confusing situation. The orders from many guilds were very simple: follow the Christmas thieves. Because of the Christmas thieves' AI, they didn't need to see Lord Grimm to know where he was. Their paths would never be wrong and they would always head towards Lord Grimm. However, these Christmas thieves' movement speeds couldn't be compared to Lord Grimm. If players only followed them, they would never be able to catch Lord Grimm. Just from movement speed alone, Ye Xiu was faster than the majority of players. And this was a huge advantage for Ye Xiu. With a silver weapon as a gun, along with his stable and adept playing, no gunner could beat him. As for other classes, their movement skills had cooldowns and they couldn't last as long. After 6 hours of persistence, Ye Xiu had already gone past the most difficult part of the plan. The more Christmas thieves behind him, the greater his advantage was, and the more difficult it was for players to find his position. 322 Christmas thieves. No guild knew of this terrifying number. The only person who knew of it was Chen Guo, who had been quietly counting the entire time. The King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown Chapter 282 Dark 323. Chen Guo watched as Ye Xiu pulled another Christmas thief. The 323rd quickly joined the flood of Christmas thieves behind Lord Grimm and was instantly submerged. Ye Xiu controlled Lord Grimm, and under his plan, the actual number of Christmas thieves he was facing wasn't as crazy as others had imagined it would be. If Chen Guo hadn't been counting the entire time, then if she looked at Ye Xiu's screen, she wouldn't have even thought that he was facing a terrifying 323 Christmas thieves. As he pulled 323 Christmas thieves, the number of remaining Christmas thieves decreased, which made it ever more difficult for Ye Xiu to find new ones. But he wasn't done yet, and Lord Grimm continued to rush about. The game's settings had changed to a windowed screen. Alongside the windowed screen was a map of Sin City, similar to what Wind Following Sword had done. If he was just running around randomly with the Christmas thieves, it wouldn't anything difficult for Ye Xiu. But as the guilds began to react, Ye Xiu had to implement more variables into his plan. Chen Guo saw his look of concentration, so she didn't bother him and only watched quietly as he played. The map was filled with Christmas thieves running around. These Christmas thieves could obviously be attacked too. However, those players wouldn't gain any points from killing these Christmas thieves, so doing so was equivalent to doing free labor for Ye Xiu. Players could only watch as the grandiose flood of Christmas thieves swept past them, since killing them wouldn't benefit them. It made the players truly feel gloomy. They continued to search for Lord Grimm's whereabouts and also looked for any Christmas thieves that had escaped from the net. The progress with the Christmas thieves hunting for the guilds grew more and more disheartening, but there was nothing they could do. They had already been working hard at it for several hours, but Lord Grimm was still as alive as ever. Quite a few had seen him, but not a single one was able to follow and block him. But if we kill them, then at the very least, there'll be new Christmas thieves that'll respawn. We shouldn't be just standing around without any monsters to kill. On Blue Brook Guild's side, Blue River and his friends were discussing amongst each other. They hadn't made any progress in the past hour. What was happening in Sin City was completely unimaginable. But so what if we kill them? When new ones respawn, won't Lord Grimm just gather them again? If he can do it once, then he can do it twice, Blue Brook Guild's Bound Boat said. Kill Lord Grimm. Flower Lantern was more impulsive. Do you think that no one else has thought of that yet, and what are their results? Bound Boat said. Blue River also let out a long sigh. Then what do we do? Are we just going to watch? Flower Lantern said. I'm thinking that he's doing this to create a situation where there's nowhere for us to go, so we'll have no other choice but to kill the Christmas thieves. But if we can restrain ourselves, he'll also be in a situation where it'll be too late to stop. With so many Christmas thieves, how was he going to kill them? Bound Boat said. He also knew Lord Grimm's true identity, so he didn't doubt Lord Grimm's skill. However, Lord Grimm killing the mob by himself was still impossible. Oh, everyone felt that Bound Boat's analysis made sense. Blue Brook Guild wasn't the only guild bound in a knot. Herb Garden, Tyrannical Ambition, Samsara, Misty Castle, which guild wasn't scratching at the wall helplessly? In the end, every guild came to the same conclusion as Bound Boat's analysis. No guild wanted to help Lord Grimm by working for free, especially Excellent Dynasty. They didn't know how many Christmas thieves Lord Grimm had accumulated exactly, but if they helped him kill all of them, Then Chen Yehui didn't doubt that Lord Grimm would immediately jump onto the top of the leaderboards, stepping on their excellent dynasty's first 15 places. This was something that Chen Yehui didn't want to see, even more so than not being able to kill Christmas thieves. At the very least, their excellent dynasty would be in the lead. Why would Chen Yehui personally help him just for him to step on them? Every guild entered this type of overcautious state. Even though Ye Xiu's routes were mapped out and planned, the pace at which he was gathering monsters was getting slower. He was gradually entering the stage where he could no longer move forward. 341 after achieving this number with great difficulty. Another half an hour passed, but Ye Xiu still wasn't able to find any new ones. How many Christmas thieves were in Sin City? It was just something that he had said. How could a single person figure this out? The guilds were all gloomy, but they would sometimes be able to find a fish that had escaped from the nets. When these Christmas thieves were killed, another would then randomly spawn. It was just that the number of Christmas thieves that spawned were very few now, so it was already no longer possible to find one just by casually strolling around. They've all been stolen by him. I haven't killed one in a long time. Tang Ru was also one of those in Sin City struggling for a penny. She was also affected by the situation and her progress was becoming more and more miserable. Pretty much. Ye Xiu suddenly said, "What are you going to do now?" Chen Yu excitedly asked. She had wanted to ask this question for a while. Tusk. I originally thought that these guilds would move out. However, it seems like this time they're very reserved. Ye Xiu sighed. The guilds had clearly determined the pros and cons of the situation this time. Even though they had been chasing to stop him the entire time, none of them had attacked the running Christmas thieves. If they're not going to move, then I'll have to do it myself. Ye Xiu sighed. How are you going to do that? Chen Guo asked. She felt as if she waiting for the final climax in a suspense film. Just keep watching and you'll know. Ye Xiu grinned, still stalling. If you weren't busy, then I'd have beat you to death already. Chen Guo was gloomy, but she didn't do anything. She mindlessly attacked monsters as she glanced at Ye Xiu's screen from time to time. Her day had been wasted. The majority of the time was spent watching Ye Xiu play. Especially true when those players had come to stop him, which had made Chen Guo extremely nervous. Meanwhile, Lord Grimm had already shifted directions. After aerial firing for a bit, he turned around and rushed straight forward. In that direction was an enormous clock tower. Under the flashing lightning bolts, it appeared extremely menacing. Hey, Tang Ru called for Chen Guo. Chen Guo turned around. Tang Ru was tapping her screen. Oh, Chen Guo returned back to reality. She had been watching Ye Xiu the entire time and her chasing haze was now surrounded by monsters. She quickly dealt with the monsters. When Chen Guo looked at Ye Xiu's screen again, Lord Grimm had already run to the bottom of the clock tower. Are you planning on? While still in mid-sentence, she saw Lord Grimm jump up and fire. Gunshots rang out and Lord Grimm flew diagonally, landing on a protrusion on the clock tower. I'm going to jump up. Ye Xiu grinned. DMN, do you think you're Suma Cheng? Chen Guo called. In Glory, there were a lot of these types of high buildings, weird trees and precipices. Under normal circumstances, it wasn't possible to climb them. But it was possible to challenge this through one's skills and through meticulous research. The methods for doing this were something the game developers had never anticipated. Sin City's clock tower was one of these buildings. The clock tower didn't have any stairs. In order to climb up, your only choice was to jump. But so far, very few had been able to accomplish this. There was a video of a successful climb of Sin City's clock tower on the web. It was a video from long ago in which Suma Cheng used aerial fire to do it, and it was recognized as the peak of the usage of aerial fire. And now, Ye Xiu just said that he was going to do it too. How could Chen Guo not jump to her feet at this? Oh, you watched the video. I'm going to do the same thing. Ye Xiu nodded his head and expressed his approval to Chen Guo. Let's see you do it, Chen Guo startled. Chen Guo had also tried to climb Sin City's clock tower before and clearly understood the difficulty of this task. The footholds weren't meant to be footholds. Some of them were just a small bulge from the wall. Landing steadily on them required extremely precise playing. Chen Guo had already recognized that she didn't have the skill to do it, which only made her respect Sima Cheng, who could do it. But now, Ye Xiu was going to do it. The King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown Chapter 283 To live high and look down. By the time Chen Guo finished saying this, Ye Xiu's Lord Grimm had already jumped twice and began to fire. His character flew through the air in a perfect arc, landing steadily onto the required place. How was the clock tower climbed? In theory, Chen Guo knew the answer. She had studied Sima Cheng's video quite a bit. When she watched Ye Xiu's playing, sure enough, it was the exact same as that video. Every foothold that he took was the exact same as how she knew it. However, every time she tried, she would always fail. Ye Xiu, on the other hand, had already succeeded twice. Chen Guo began to grow nervous again. She understood very clearly that for this type of jumping, if a single mistake was made, then all of the previous efforts would be wasted. She had experienced this many times before. Guo, look here. At this moment, Tang Ru pulled at her. Chen Guo turned her head and looked. Soft mist had also run to the bottom of the clock tower. Her camera was directed towards Lord Grimm. Jump, shoot, jump, shoot. There was almost no pause between Lord Grimm's jumping and shooting. Apart from the times that he needed to turn his body, every time that he landed, he would then immediately begin to jump. His character looked like it was sliding along the wall of the clock tower. After only a short while, he had already reached a quarter of the way up the clock tower. Slow down. Chen Guo's hands were sweating from nervousness. Her earphones felt like they were squeezing her head. She took them off, which let her listen to the sounds of Ye Xiu's playing. A stop, a pause. The clicking of his mouse and the tapping of his keyboard had a rhythm. With every beat, his character jumped. It felt as if she was watching a movie where the sound perfectly synced together. Beneath the clock tower on the streets were incoming Christmas thieves. 341 Christmas thieves had finally gathered at one spot. At this moment, more and more were accumulating underneath the clock tower. They surrounded it, restless and noisy. Then, one after the other began to climb the tower. Chen Guo saw that Ye Xiu had no way of turning back. If he ever made a single mistake and fell down, then he would immediately be drowned in the flood of Christmas thieves and be killed instantly. Suspense film turned into a horror film. Chen Guo's heart had leaped up into her throat. She almost didn't want to watch anymore. Up, up. Lord Grimm continued to ascend without any hesitation and without any mistakes. The difficult places that Chen Guo recalled were easily passed over, and finally, just as he was about to reach the top, Chen Guo suddenly cried, "Ah!" On the screen, Lord Grimm jumped and fired like usual, except this time his character was off from the top by a little. He wouldn't reach it. Lightning flashed down. Chen Guo suddenly remembered that this final point was very high and required that the character had a certain level of recoil, jumping ability and weight. The instant that Ye Xiu jumped, he might not have prepared for this most difficult point. Chen Guo helplessly watched as Lord Grimm failed to reach the top. He was already beginning to descend. Just as she was upset that she hadn't reminded him in time, she suddenly heard Ye Xiu repeatedly tap his keyboard. Lord Grimm raised his weapon and then opened it. "What are you doing? A parachute," Chen Guo whispered in puzzlement, but the thousand-chance umbrella didn't stop there. The canopy of the umbrella receded back to the umbrella bones. 8 umbrella bones bunched together and then began to rotate. "DMN, no way," Chen Guo yelled. This time she recognized it. This was the mechanic's skill, rotor wing. Lord Grimm's descent immediately stopped. After hanging in the air for a bit, he suddenly began to ascend. Following this, Ye Xiu made another move, and the 1,000-chance umbrella returned to its original form, allowing Lord Grimm to land on the clock tower's top. This thing can even function as a mechanical box, Chen Guo said in astonishment. Mechanical boxes were special equipment, which were made for mechanics. Even though mechanics were considered gunners in reality, the majority of their skills didn't use their guns, but rather a mechanical box. It didn't have any attack stats, but it could increase the levels for skills. As a result, for mechanics, they held guns in their hands and carried a mechanical box along their waist. Only this setup allowed them to completely use their skills, a unique aspect of this class. And even though Rotor Wing was a level 20 and under common skill, without a mechanical box it couldn't be used. Or are you carrying a mechanical box on you? Chen Guo asked. No, the umbrella has a mechanical box function, Ye Xiu said. FCK, what a weird weapon. Chen Guo was speechless. Ye Xiu chuckled but didn't say anything. His character's camera turned. Ah, there's someone up here. Chen Guo jumped up in fright, seeing that there was someone up at the top of the clock tower. But after seeing the other person's name, Cleansing Mist, she recognized her as the person who had helped Tang Ru. This person was one of their friends. She also jumped up. Chen Guo muttered and felt her heart ache a little. This sister was also a launcher like her, and played with Tang Ru and Ye Xiu, too. Chen Guo couldn't help comparing herself to this launcher. Now she saw that this launcher had actually been able to jump up to the top. Even if it was only for aerial fire, she couldn't compare herself to this launcher. Wow, there's no need for all of this. Ye Xiu was talking with Sima Cheng in-game. Sima Cheng's cleansing mist and him had started a trade transaction. She had sent him a large amount of potions, which were all mana potions, instantly stuffing his weight to the max. Just in case, Sima Cheng said. I'm not used to having this much weight, Ye Xiu said. It's not like you need to move too quickly, Sima Cheng said. That might not be true. Ye Xiu had Lord Grimm walk to the edge of the clock tower. The clock tower was very tall. The Christmas thieves looked like ants which were swarming their way up the clock tower. Tang Ru, who was beneath the clock tower, was looking at the top of the tower, but the fog made it difficult to see. When lightning flashed down and lit up the sky, she was able to see two figures on top of the tower. The other guilds were bitterly searching for Lord Grimm. Finally, when they reached here, it was too late. Those who were quicker were at least able to admire Lord Grimm's heroic feat of jumping to the top of the tower. This is hard to stop halfway. After receiving this news, Blue River helplessly said to Bound Boat. Bound Boat immediately turned silent. They had already figured out that these Christmas thieves were probably going to be taken down by Lord Grimm, who was now living high and looking down. And the other players, who didn't know Lord Grimm's true identity, were still amazed at the fact that he had jumped up to the top of the clock tower. Chen Yehui was extremely vexed. He wasn't surprised in the slightest that Ye Xiu was able to jump up to the top. But why hadn't he thought of this place? He had only thought that Ye Xiu wanted to spite them, forcing the guilds to kill his Christmas thieves. But he hadn't thought that Ye Xiu actually had a plan that he could fall back to. If he had thought of this earlier, Chen Yehui would have been able to guess that he would use the clock tower for this purpose. And now, it was too late. By the time that Chen Yehui had personally reached the clock tower, he fell dumbstruck just like every other player there. There were so many Christmas thieves that it was impossible to count them all. Now that they had all gathered together in one place, the sight was too strong. The Christmas thieves were completely tunneled in. They didn't care about the players behind them in the slightest. As if they were going to pay respects at a shrine, they bravely headed towards that clock tower. And the players, they could only stupidly watch. Chen Yehui looked left and right and saw Plantago Seed, Blue River, Cold Night, Lonely Drink, Backlight Bomb, Hazy Mist. The guild leaders of every top guild in the 10th server were all gathered in the same place, staring stupidly. staring up high at the figures that could only be seen when lightning flashed. The Christmas thieves leading the character were just about to reach the top when lightning flashed down, allowing them to see the real situation. On top of the clock tower wasn't just one person, but two. The moment the lightning arced down, two streaks of flame roared out from the muzzles of these two figures. Flames exploded on the clock tower's stone walls. Everyone could hear the sad and shrill shrieks. The Christmas thieves that had been hit were blown flying. What were they going to grab onto in the air? If they weren't going to fall to the ground, where else could they go? These were all points. These were all presents. The players thought as their hearts ached. The King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown Chapter 284. There's still hope. The damage from falling off the clock tower was much greater than the damage coming from players. If players were to fall down, then they would certainly die. Hearing these Christmas thieves shriek and shrill as they fell made all the players their ache. They wouldn't die from the fall, would they? Wasn't that too easy for Lord Grimm? Just as they were thinking of this, they saw a giant beam of light shoot down from the top of the clock tower towards the ground. This was a laser rifle from Su Cheng's cleansing mist. This attack was a spectacular sight, though the damage from it wasn't as impressive as the visual effects. The thieves at the front of the charge ate the laser rifle and were pushed apart, falling down from the clock tower. Afterwards, the laser rifle's damage gradually decreased. In the end, the attack had only pushed down 3 Christmas thieves. Even though the others had been hit, they were able to cling onto the clock tower's walls. Whether the monsters could be shot down depended on the skill's effect. The most optimal skills were the ones with a strong blow-away effect. Knockbacks, such as from a charged-up laser rifle, could knock the Christmas thieves into each other and push a few down. If the skill effect was weaker, then the Christmas thieves would be pushed, but they wouldn't fall. Ye Xiu and Su Cheng naturally understood this well. All sorts of skills were shot down from the top of the clock tower. Layer after layer of Christmas thieves continuously plummeted. Some quickly fell to the very bottom, while some only fell halfway, and some only just began to fall. Gradually, the shrieks from the falling Christmas thieves combined into one like a chorus, accompanying Sin City's sinister atmosphere. Players that heard this felt a creeping coldness climb up their spines. The guild leaders got together again. Some shook their heads in helplessness while others sighed. Some looked up towards the sky in shock. The worst among them was Ye Xiu. This was because his guild currently ruled the leaderboards. The other guilds had already begun to feel the effects from Excellent Dynasty's huge investment in the 10th server. Ignoring all else, the number of experts in the heavenly domain's Excellent Dynasty had become fewer. Everyone was aware of Excellent Dynasty's movements now. Though even if they knew, every guild had their own plans for their development in the new server and didn't immediately invest more into it in order to keep up with Excellent Dynasty. And this time, in the Christmas event, Excellent Dynasty monopolized the 10th server's leaderboards as a result. The other guilds knew that they wouldn't be able to compete with Excellent Dynasty. They saw this, but didn't bother with it too much. From a different point of view, Excellent Dynasty may look great in the 10th server, but what about the heavenly domain? Without their experts, they were doing extremely poorly in the event. Their performance could even be compared to guilds that had been made by casual players. As a result, even though everyone was watching Lord Grimm show off his might, everyone felt differently about it. Other guilds would only profit a bit less because of Ye Xiu's move, but no one felt worse than Ye Xiu. Should we go and kill them? At the very least, the Christmas thieves will begin respawning sooner. With his method, who knows how long it will take for him to kill them all? I sent some people to check. These Christmas thieves won't die with a single fall and will even continue climbing. We really don't know how many times it will take for one of them to die from falling. There were already players beginning to discuss whether they should kill the Christmas thieves or not. After realizing that there was no way they could reach Lord Grim, quite a few players were beginning to have this thought. Kill them and gift Lord Grim free points. After that, he'll just gather up more of them and then we go and help him again. FCK, disgusting. There were also voices who disagreed, especially from those who detested Lord Grim. Ye Xiu didn't want to just do nothing either. He wanted to start another alliance to oppose Lord Grim. But this time, he failed. All the other guild leaders just laughed and cut off the conversation. Ye Xiu also knew that, in this Christmas event, their excellent dynasty had profited the most so far. If they were to oppose Lord Grim, their excellent dynasty would still profit the most from it. What guild would agree to that? Ye Xiu was helpless. Lord Grim was at the top of the clock tower, but he had no way of dealing with him. Even though he had many experts under him, none of them could guarantee that they could climb up the tower in a single try. Even if they could, with Lord Grim guarding the clock tower if they tried to jump, wouldn't they be in the same situation as the Christmas thieves? Ye Xiu was at his wit's end. In the end, his only choice was to bitterly continue looking for Christmas thieves. As Lord Grim killed his thieves, more would begin to respawn in Sin City. Most of the guilds were already beginning to move out. Quite a few had begun to disperse. Help Lord Grim kill off the Christmas thieves to have them respawn faster. In the end, no one did this. For people like Ye Xiu and Lonely Drink, doing something like that would make them feel as disgusted as if they had eaten a fly. They truly couldn't do it. Those who wanted to do this also gave up because, if they did it, their players would be left at the clock tower, while the other guilds who didn't do this would disperse and start looking for the respawned Christmas thieves. Helping Lord Grim was tolerable, but to be taken advantage of by others wasn't something that the guilds could tolerate. I say we should try to control Lord Grim. We should take advantage while he's trapped at the top of the clock tower to have a few of our troops kill him when he comes down. Blossom Valley's backlight bomb said. His team had been killed by Ye Xiu before and he still remembered it well. Kill him. To where? He'll just come back from Kanji City. And then what? Are you going to lock up Sin City's entrance? Hazy Mist refuted. In everyone's eyes, they couldn't just chase him like before and split their forces again, right? The Christmas event only lasted for 36 hours. Who would use their limited time wasting their resources? FCK, it's everyone for themselves. The guild leaders sighed and then dispersed. In the square beneath the clock tower, the players had left. But in the nearby streets, some players would walk for a bit and then stop and turn their heads to look. In just a short moment, they've reached another level. Blue Brook Guild was one of the guilds that hadn't completely left. Right now, Bound Boat was looking at the clock tower and talking to Blue River. Blue River's character raised his hand and was clearly observing as well. After a short pause, he said, "You're right. Does this mean that it's possible that Lord Grim won't be able to hold on?" Flower Lantern said, while gulping. If Lord Grim couldn't hold on, then that meant that the instant he died, the Christmas thieves would return to their original state. Blue Brook Guild obviously didn't mind taking the thieves for themselves. I'm afraid that we won't be the only guild to figure this out, Bound Boat said as he lowered his head and looked around. With Sin City's visibility, the only thing that they could see was the rain and fog. They couldn't tell if there were other people around. With so many of them, we won't be able to eat them all. Even if we split the pot up, it'll still be good for us. Blue River laughed bitterly. Our guild wouldn't be able to finish the meal and that guy wants to do it all himself. Let him die from overeating, Flower Lantern said fiercely, and hoped that the Christmas thieves would hurry and submerge the clock tower. What do you think? Can you hold on? Chen Guo was worried about this. From the beginning of his resistance, Ye Xiu's playing had become extremely quick. His character was constantly shuffling about the peak of the tower. But seeing Ye Xiu's expression and seeing how he didn't look nervous, Chen Guo couldn't help but bother him and ask. Just barely, Ye Xiu grinned. He and Suma Cheng couldn't stop to rest for even a single moment. The Christmas thieves had climbed up all around the tower, but they weren't going one at a time. Luckily, the clock tower became narrower the higher up it went. At the very peak of the tower, there was only enough space for 5 thieves to climb. According to these 5 spots, Ye Xiu and Sima Cheng split the tower into 5 sections, which were a B, C, D, and E. B, Sima Cheng called. Lord Grimm hastily rushed over. A Christmas thief was just about to climb up when Lord Grimm swept it away with a falling flower palm. D. Lord Grimm turned around and ran back. This Christmas thief was a gunner. As he climbed, he even fired at Lord Grimm. Ye Xiu hastily dodged. He extended his arm and threw a grenade at the Christmas thief. Bang! Sima Cheng called again. Almost, almost. Below the clock tower, squatting under the darkness, countless players looked up towards the tower, nervously awaiting the future's results. The King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown Chapter 285. We can't let it go to waste. The clock tower's peak was high and distant. From the streets, the only thing that could be seen was a vague, dark shape. Normally, the sudden flashes from lightning scared players, but right now, everyone looked forward to them. It allowed them see clearly, saving them some effort. "They've gotten up," a player shouted. He saw a hazy figure leap onto the clock tower's peak. "Go!" Ye Xiu yelled. He hadn't given up yet. He had also noticed a Christmas thief breaking in. He had plenty of players handy and immediately split them into 2 groups. Half of them were to disperse and look for the newly respawned Christmas thieves, while the other half were to prepare to scramble for the pile of Christmas thieves. Hearing their guild leader's orders, Excellent Dynasty's players immediately rushed to the streets. With so many players flooding the streets, it was quite easy for others to take notice of them. After all of the guilds were positioned in a circle, so everyone had a different viewing angle. When Excellent Dynasty saw the Christmas thief go up, the Blue Brook Guild's players hadn't seen it yet. However, once they saw the players on the opposite side of them rushing forward, even though they didn't know which guild they were from, they easily figure out why they had moved out. "Go!" Blue River also shouted an order, and Blue Brook Guild's players rushed forward as well. And like this, they tipped off each other, and in a short moment, 6 different troops had rushed out from the surrounding 6 streets, forming a giant circle around the clock tower. Cough! Someone gently coughed. This scene was a bit awkward. But many of them didn't care about this at all and had their heads raised, watching the Christmas thieves' movements. The Christmas thieves were still climbing though, which meant that Lord Grimm was still alive. FCK. Someone cursed on Excellent Dynasty's side. They watched as the blurry figure that had flipped onto the top of the clock tower made a distant shriek and then fell onto the ground. Were we too impulsive? A player seized the moment to ask. They had only seen a blurry, dark figure flip onto the clock tower and had rushed out simply because of that. It truly was somewhat impulsive. The players who had positioned themselves and prepared to press the buttons for their skills unhappily loosened up their hands. Everyone waited a bit, but they didn't see any other Christmas thief reach the top. "Should we go back?" the guilds whispered amongst themselves. "What do you mean, go back?" a player said, while looking left and right. Everyone was out in the open. In any case, they stayed. Everyone understood that there was no point in hiding things from each other. As a result, everyone raised their heads in unison and watched. C. D. Sima Cheng was constantly calling out. "I say, are your cooldowns really that long?" Ye Xiu figured out that there was a problem. Sima Cheng's launcher didn't have as many skills as his unspecialized, so there was no way she could continuously shoot Christmas thieves down like Lord Grimm could. A lot of her time was spent observing the thieves' positions. However, why did it seem like she was attacking less and less? "Ha ha ha, they're not. I just thought that it'd be fun like this." Sima Cheng laughed. "Are you trying to mess with me?" "Have you eaten dinner?" Sima Cheng asked. "Not yet." "Really? How sad. Then I'll help you out," Sima Cheng said. She sent an anti-tank missile towards a climbing Christmas thief in area. See the explosion that resulted from it brought down 2 other Christmas thieves as well. "Have you eaten?" Ye Xiu asked. "I have." Sima Cheng hadn't been gathering monsters the entire time like Ye Xiu, who didn't even have time to take a sip of water. She had first helped Ye Xiu look for Christmas thieves and after that went to the main city to buy a bunch of potions. She then came back and jumped up to the peak of the clock tower and waited with plenty of time to eat some food. After Sima Cheng started trying again, they moved like butterflies floating past flowers. After a short while, the Christmas thieves, which had almost been about to break through, were pushed back down once again. This scene was something that the guilds didn't want to see. Maybe it's only temporary, everyone silently thought. In the blink of an eye, half an hour had passed. It was a bit too long for it to be temporary now. Ye Xiu, who was looking at the Christmas hunting leaderboards, discovered that Lord Grimm, who had fallen off the list, was now shooting up on it like a rocket. The Christmas thieves that had fallen off from the clock tower might not be dead, but they were pretty much halfway to being dead. As a result, when they climbed up and fell 2 or 3 more times, they would eventually die. Right now, it was time to seize the prize. Every time that Ye Xiu refreshed the page, he saw Lord Grimm leap forward. Accompanying this was the repeated cries of the Christmas thieves falling down. Ye Xiu refused to give up. He raised his head and prayed that the Christmas thieves would grow fiercer. The other guilds hadn't backed out yet either. Everyone still had some hope and wished that Lord Grimm wouldn't be able to hang on. They had seen Christmas thieves reach the top several times. They were all ready to attack, but they were quickly blown away and even bringing a few of their bros along with them. Another half an hour passed. The amount of Christmas thieves was reduced significantly. Of the 6 guilds, only 4 remained. 2 of the guilds had already retreated. Every time a Christmas thief died, another one would quickly respawn in Sin City. As for them, they didn't see any signs of Lord Grimm's defeat, so they didn't want to waste any more time. 4, 3, 2. Finally, only Excellent Dynasty was left. It wasn't as if Ye Xiu couldn't see the current situation. It was just that he refused to accept it. From the looks of it, it didn't seem like Lord Grimm was going to have any trouble guarding the clock tower. But what if he suddenly made some sort of grave mistake? Ye Xiu was already betting on his luck. Lord Grimm, standing on the leaderboards, continued to rise faster and faster. Ye Xiu watched as he shot up, but there was nothing that he could do to stop him. 400th place, 300th place, 200th place. Ye Xiu finally saw another familiar name rising up along with Lord Grimm. Cleansing Mist. Ye Xiu hadn't noticed it in the beginning because this name was unexpectedly placed higher than Lord Grimm. When Lord Grimm hit 200th place, Cleansing Mist was already in the top 200. Ye Xiu was surprised and checked again and saw Soft Mist's name, who was unexpectedly higher than Lord Grimm as well. Clearly, these 3 had partied up to hunt the Christmas thieves. If they were in a party, everyone shared the points from a Christmas thief. As a result, the 3 rose up quickly in the leaderboards together. Ye Xiu had only been paying attention to Lord Grimm. When Lord Grimm was gathering up all of those monsters, he hadn't gained any points, while those 2 kept their rankings on the leaderboard. At this moment, after working hard for several hours, it was finally time to harvest the fruits of his labor. As for Sin City's other players, they were left with the slowly recovering Christmas thief population. Players were dropping in ranks as they were surpassed by these 3. Even though the 3 were sharing the points, it was still more than enough to surpass the players who had completely lost their advantage. Midnight. On the 10th server's Sin City clock tower, the 2-hour-long battle finally ended. Cleansing Mist, Soft Mist, and Lord Grimm were now ranked 1st, 2nd, and 3rd on the Christmas hunting leaderboards. Excellent Dynasty's 15 heroes had gotten stepped on in the end, and 3 times too. Chen Yehui's expression was so ugly that it looked like he could die at any moment. The corpses of the Christmas thieves piled up beneath the clock tower. A large portion of them had already respawned, but the Christmas thieves that were still piled there made the clock tower look like a Christmas tree, even though there was a bit of blood on it. The bloody Christmas tree was filled with the Christmas spirit, though. The tree was covered with presents. They were presents that had dropped from the dead Christmas thieves. Soft Mist was currently climbing up the tree and worked hard to collect these presents. Although the person controlling Soft Mist wasn't Tang Ru, but instead was Chen Guo. Soft Mist wasn't able to jump up onto the clock tower, so she wasn't able to do much in the battle. Chen Guo had only been there originally to watch, but now she wasn't able to watch any longer because of these presents. 341 Christmas thieves. 341 presents. The system protected them. Those who weren't in the party couldn't pick them up. Leaving them there would be a waste. Tang Ru didn't really care and in the end was scolded by Chen Guo as a result. Chen Guo then pushed Tang Ru to the side and then personally went to collect the presents for her. Tang Ru didn't know whether to laugh or cry and left Chen Guo to do it. The King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown Chapter 286 Harming Others for One's Personal Gain. Midnight. Normally, Ye Xiu would have taken the shift an hour ago. But today, for the Christmas event, Ye Xiu had created such a crazy scene. Chen Guo was even more nervous about it than Ye Xiu was. She let him off with a break and randomly had someone else sub in for Ye Xiu. Chen Guo had been controlling Soft Mist to collect the presents when she heard several gun shots from her headphones. Lord Grim and Cleansing Mist had jumped down from the clock tower. Using their guns' recoil, they reduced a portion of the damage taken from falling too far down. If they had directly dropped down from the clock tower, they'd definitely die, which would then just be a joke. The two characters came down one after the other and also began to pick up their presents. However, while Lord Grim was picking them up, he was also throwing away potions. They were all blue mana potions. As he was doing that, he grumbled, "See, I told you that you bought too many. More is better than less," Cleansing Mist said, and also threw away any excess items from her bag. It had been about who knew how long it was since the first Christmas thief had dropped to his death. Actually, quite a few presents had already disappeared. But even so, the three still weren't able to completely pick up all of the presents that hadn't disappeared yet. The three characters circled around and around the Christmas tree, picking up presents. All around the streets, several eyes stared at the scene. The main force of the 6 guilds had withdrawn, but they had left a few players there who would report to the guild in case Lord Grim made a disastrous mistake. In the end, they watched till the very end as the corpses turned into presents, making their mouths water all over the ground. The three quickly filled up their bags with presents. Seeing that there were still presents left, even Ye Xiu felt that it was a pity. In the end, he saw Soft Mist, who was being controlled by Chen Guo, turn around resolutely and leave without any signs of reluctance. Ye Xiu was admiring the boss' heroic determination when he heard Chen Guo shout, hurry up and exchange them. Maybe there'll still be presents when we return." Ye Xiu quietly wiped away some of his sweat and followed from behind. Su Macheng's Cleansing Mist also followed behind them. But right now, the three characters were all burdened with a filled bag, so using aerial fire wouldn't feel comfortable. Santa could be found in every leveling area, making it convenient for players to exchange their presents. Sin City's Santa was at the entrance of the city, so there was some distance between it and the clock tower, which was in the middle of the city. With their current movement speed, Ye Xiu didn't have high hopes that they'd be able to exchange their presents and return in time before the leftover presents disappeared. Ye Xiu calculated the number of points he had gotten in this hour, as well as his earnings from the presents. For the top guilds, Ye Xiu had completely used up the thief resources in Sin City, so their gains weren't much better than those in crowded places like Line Canyon or Desolate Land. As for Ye Xiu, if he had been doing the quest normally, with his efficiency, he would have had around the same number of points as he had now from the shared 341 Christmas thieves. As for the presents, his losses were much greater. Normally, he wouldn't have had to waste so many presents. The end result, however, was that the gap between Ye Xiu and the big guilds was huge, but by reducing the big guild's gains, Ye Xiu's gains had been reduced as well. What he had accomplished was, in reality, harming others for his own personal gain, and truthfully, this wasn't what Ye Xiu wanted. He would have preferred to quietly gather up points and rewards. As for how much the top guilds profited, Ye Xiu didn't care. Unfortunately, there just had to have been people making things difficult for him. Regarding this, Ye Xiu also felt bad. He hoped that, in the next 24 hours, everyone would eventually come to an understanding. For a rare event like Christmas, no one would gain anything from hurting each other. As he thought about this, the three reached Santa. They naturally returned the lost presents back to Santa. Chen Guo hastily exchanged all the presents, turned around and dashed back to the clock tower, opening the rewards as she ran. Her luck was quite good, and after opening up all of her rewards, she appeared on TV 3 times. She received 2 purple equipment and even a skill book. Chen Guo had only realized this after she finished cheering that soft mist wasn't her own account. Even so, she was still happy about her luck. Ye Xiu and Sima Cheng's luck unfortunately wasn't as good as Chen Guo's, although they both made it onto TV once. The two didn't care as much, though. But while opening the presents, they leveled up from level 31 to 32. This event was an amazing time to gain experience and earn money. It was hard to come by such a prosperous time in the cold game. Otherwise, why else would all the players be going crazy for the thieves? Seeing that they leveled up, Ye Xiu opened up his friend's list and checked. Steamed Bun Invasion still wasn't online, and there was no sign of Cairo Yifen either. Ye Xiu didn't really know that much about Steamed Bun Invasion's situation. As for Cairo Yifen, it was very likely that the pro team would host some sort of party or activity on Christmas to bond with each other. Thinking about this, Ye Xiu messaged Sima Cheng, "It's Christmas Eve, doesn't the team have anything planned?" "They do," Sima Cheng replied. "Why didn't you go?" "I'm sick," Sima Cheng said. "What happened?" "There's an event today, so I got sick. I had to participate in the event to cure it," Sima Cheng quibbled. The three quickly returned back beneath the clock tower, though they hadn't rushed there for nothing. There were still a few presents remaining there that hadn't disappeared yet. There were only 10 or so presents, which were then split by the three of them. With the presents gone, the corpses also went away. The area around the clock tower looked as if it would quickly return back to peaceful times. Chen Guo wanted to continue, though. She got up and let Tang Ru use soft mist again. She pushed Ye Xiu and said, "Hurry up, gather them again." Ye Xiu laughed bitterly. "Boss, think about it carefully. If I did it again, what's the difference between me killing them normally and gathering them all at once?" Chen Guo stared blankly. She then thought about Ye Xiu killing 14 Christmas thieves in 1 hour. Gathering all of the thieves didn't earn him much more, and he earned even fewer presents, right? However, the three of them were now way above everyone else on the Christmas hunting leaderboards. Thinking of this, Chen Guo felt happy. But as for Ye Xiu, he preferred earning more presents. Did he really care about being ranked against normal players? Did he need to stoop that low? Ye Xiu pushed away Chen Guo's hopes of him gathering the monsters all up again and then left his seat. Having been doing the same thing for so long, he had to do something new. He used the restroom, ate, and drank some water. Thinking about how there were so many players harboring evil intentions towards him, Ye Xiu cautiously decided that he wouldn't stay online and chose to log out instead. Lord Grimm logged off. When the guild suddenly noticed this, they were startled at first and then became excited. As the Christmas thieves at the clock tower were killed, the thief population in Sin City began to recover back into its prosperous state, as it had been before all of this. Everyone was actively plundering about. Knowing that Lord Grimm had gone offline was unbelievably good news for them, especially for Ye Xiu. The news felt as amazing as if finally having a thorn removed. Ye Xiu immediately checked the leaderboards. Even though the three were still ahead of them, the distance wasn't hopeless. Ye Xiu had logged off, but they hadn't, which meant that they had time to catch up and surpass him. Ye Xiu excitedly gave the orders and formulated a plan to surpass Lord Grimm in 4 hours. After 5 hours, their 15 heroes would once again dominate the leaderboards and obtain the first 15 places. Unfortunately, the good news didn't last long. After half an hour of joy and hope, a system prompt notified everyone and struck everyone's hearts. System notification. Friend Lord Grimm is online. Friend Lord Grimm. Everyone wanted to dig out these words and eat them. He wasn't a good friend. He definitely wasn't one. Some angrily gave him a tag, giving Lord Grimm a nickname of lowly thug, robber, bandit, evil beast. But how could these random things affect Ye Xiu? After entering the game again, Ye Xiu sat in a comfortable position and looked at Chen Guo strangely. "Boss, you're still not going to sleep." "Event," Chen Guo said as her chasing haze ran about the heavenly domain. "Tusk, tusk," Ye Xiu lamented. He turned his head back to look at a message that had come through. He checked it and saw that it was Blue River. "God, are you still planning on playing like that?" After Blue River knew of Ye Xiu's identity, he addressed him differently and no longer called him brother anymore. The King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown Chapter 287. Collaboration. Blue River wasn't the only one to message him. Cold Night Plantago Seed, Misty Castle's Hazy Mist, and a few other guild representatives came over to ask as if they hadn't been involved in Ye Xiu gathering up the Christmas thieves. "It depends." Ye Xiu replied to everyone with the same 2 words. "God, if you stall like that, then it isn't good for either of us," Blue River replied. He had left a few players beneath the clock tower, so those players had seen that Ye Xiu's group only consisted of 3 players. Many of the presents had disappeared and weren't picked up. The scene truly made their hearts ache. His one-wave gathering was a rather heavy blow to them. Everyone was worried that Lord Grimm would do it again, so they had to go and ask what he was planning on doing next. Collaborate with Lord Grimm. It wasn't as if no one had thought of this. With Lord Grimm's method, it was definitely possible to suppress the other guilds. When the time came, as long as their guild members were a part of the same team as Lord Grimm, then they would guarantee a profit. However, when news of that came out, other guilds would certainly group together and attack them. Thus, after weighing the pros and cons, the guilds that had originally planned on this decided not to, and instead decided to urge Lord Grimm not to gather the monsters again, so that everyone was on the same level playing field. By helping each other analyze the situation, it was as if everyone was good friends with each other. Ye Xiu understood this way before they did. The guilds had come across an unexpected accident. They hadn't had any plans on dealing with Lord Grimm initially. When the other guilds saw that Excellent Dynasty held the first 15 places and were way ahead of everyone else as well, they recognized Excellent Dynasty's huge investment in the 10th server. Because of this, no one really planned on competing against them on the Christmas hunting leaderboards. The only worried guild was Excellent Dynasty. Only Excellent Dynasty used the spinning spiderweb formation to oppose Lord Grimm, and only Excellent Dynasty was unhappy with Lord Grimm's placing on the leaderboard. The first 3 places had been snatched away, which was already enough to make Ye Xiu detest them to death. But what Ye Xiu didn't know was that Ye Xiu had then exposed the whole story to the other guilds, instantly infuriating them. They felt as if they had been forced into excellent dynasties' matters and were blamed alongside them. It didn't make them feel any better about what Lord Grimm did, but their target had increased by one. Excellent dynasty. And at this moment, Ye Xiu actively gave out a suggestion. Collaboration. Ye Xiu suggested a collaboration, dispelling the guild's previous doubts. The guilds had wanted to collaborate with Lord Grimm alone, so they had been scared that the other guilds would attack them. But Ye Xiu was asking everyone to collaborate to eliminate the troublemaking excellent dynasty. After the guilds discussed with each other, they felt like it was something they should do. The suggestion called for everyone to work together. The only thing that they were conflicted upon was how the presents would be distributed. The points from killing the Christmas thieves would be split evenly between everyone in the team, but the presents were free to pick up. Because of this, whoever picked up more or whoever picked up fewer could cause a dispute among them. After all, they weren't from the same guild and were all enemies. No one trusted each other. This issue was a very big obstacle. After talking for a while, no one had come up with a good solution. That'll depend on your luck. In the end, Ye Xiu proposed a suggestion. We're all in the same team anyways and can't attack each other, so it'll just depend on who's faster. This was pretty much a suggestion to which nothing was said, but in any case, it was a solution which everyone could accept. Players who picked up less were those whose hands were slower. That was their own fault. The plan was finally made and a team was created. In Glory, the maximum limit for a party was 10 players. Each team could hold 10 parties. In other words, a team could house up to 100 players, and the number of guilds participating was 12. In the end, every guild sent 8 players, split between 10 parties along with Ye Xiu, Sima Cheng and Tang Ru, for a total of 99 players. The 8 players sent from each guild were, without a doubt, the top players of each guild. Excellent Dynasty executed a Sea of People strategy. The other guilds followed the more elite route to counter this. Excellent Dynasty had the advantage in the number of experts they possessed, but the other guilds could concentrate their resources on training a more elite team. After all, only one team was needed to set a dungeon record. Their collaboration was an opportunity to train their elite team. If everything went smoothly, then their profits might not be any better than before. But the important part was that the other guilds not involved would be greatly weakened by this, and that Excellent Dynasty would be one of them. If Excellent Dynasty earned less experience in this event, then the experience gap between Excellent Dynasty and the 12 guilds would widen. Their advantage in manpower would be greatly weakened by a level advantage held by the 12 guilds, elite teams. Without delay, the 99-player team immediately began to work together as soon as the plan was made. The players spread out all over Sin City and began searching for monsters. Ye Xiu's Lord Grimm, who was currently standing next to Soft Mist and Cleansing Mist, didn't move. After a short moment, the players that had rushed out had already come back with a Christmas thief behind them. Ye Xiu controlled Lord Grimm to meet them and then attack. One after the other, the Christmas thieves aggroed onto Lord Grimm. A team could be considered as an individual entity, so the Christmas thieves' aggro could shift between teammates. If one player didn't attack the thief, but another did, the aggro would be snatched by the other player. After sending Lord Grimm their thieves, the other players left. Ye Xiu easily shrugged off the Christmas thieves and began to wander around. Soon after, a steady flow of Christmas thieves came. Whether due to his own actions or from other players, in the end, they were gathered behind him. The train once again began, and this time the train was growing much faster because Ye Xiu had more than 90 helpers. He started it again. Chen Yehui didn't know what the situation was, but as soon as he heard the report that Lord Grimm had started the train, he immediately flared up. "We have to stop him, no matter the cost," Chen Yehui ordered. Excellent Dynasty's players bitterly began to carry out his orders. At the entrance of a street, a team of players had blocked off Lord Grimm. Just as they were about to attack, a laser beam shot towards them. Sima Cheng had acted faster. Tang Ru's soft mist also brandished her lance and rushed forward. Her movement speed frightened them. Battle spirit. For the next 20 hours of the Christmas event, Soft Mist would possess this skill. With this high-leveled skill that she usually wouldn't have, the small troop of soldiers were easily blown away. The players still chased after them, but then they saw a scene that made them dazed. In front of them was a tyrannical ambition player with a Christmas thief. Lord Grimm went up and then unexpectedly took the thief's aggro. The Christmas thief was set up so that they would only attack the first person that attacked it. For something like this to happen could only mean one thing. Lord Grimm and tyrannical ambition were on the same team. This report was quickly sent to Ye Xiu. Ye Xiu was startled at first but quickly understood what was going on. Tyrannical ambition and Ye Xiu are working together. Ye Xiu was someone that Ye Xiu detested. Tyrannical ambition was also their most detested rival guild. Now that two detested groups were collaborating, it made him feel twice the disgust. HMPH, the reckless fool. Ye Xiu laughed coldly. He felt that collaborating with Lord Grimm now would make the guild the target of everyone, which would give him the chance to ally with everyone else to take down Lord Grimm the King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace, Showdown Chapter 288 Powerful MT Right. When Ye Xiu was figuring out how he would use this opportunity to create a movement within the top guilds, he suddenly received a new message. Blue Brook Guild's Christmas thieves were taken away by Lord Grimm. It looked as if both sides had formed a team. What? Blue Brook Guild? Ye Xiu felt that, this time, not only would he take care of Lord Grimm, he'd also take care of these two enemy guilds as well. Ye Xiu opened up his friends' list and was just about to send messages to the other guilds, when he received several similar messages. Misty Castle, Herb Garden 301, Blossom Valley, Howling Heights, Void Walk, Royal Heritage, Parade. Guild names appeared one after the other. It was finally time for Ye Xiu to be stunned. An attack from all sides. An unwise move. Ye Xiu discovered that he had gotten the target wrong completely. The lone target was his excellent dynasty. New messages continued to arrive, although some were repeats. Not long after, Ye Xiu had figured out how many guilds were working together with Lord Grimm. 12. Not one of the three great guilds was missing, and the remaining powerhouses were all participating as well. Many of these guilds had even allied together with Excellent Dynasty to pursue Lord Grimm before, but in a sudden turn of events, they immediately switched alliances to ally with Lord Grimm for their own interests. After counting these 12 guilds, Ye Xiu looked again. Among the big guilds, only Samsara hadn't joined. Samsara's lonely drink had been influenced too much by his personal feelings for Lord Grimm, which was why he hadn't responded to him. Right now, he was feeling the same as Ye Xiu. He felt a cold chill run down his spine. They had no strategy left to try and were powerless to stop the opposing guilds. Against an alliance between 12 guilds, how could they stop them? Sin City's Christmas thieves quickly flocked behind Lord Grimm. The more than 90 players each carried at least one, and sometimes more Christmas thieves when they returned. Half an hour. After only half an hour, Lord Grimm had already gathered 415 Christmas thieves, surpassing the number of thieves he had reached after 7 hours by himself. At this moment, the number of available Christmas thieves had turned into a shortage. The 99-player team all headed towards Sin City's clock tower. Without any pause, Ye Xiu had Lord Grimm begin climbing with the Christmas thieves gathered below him. Except this time, Lord Grimm hadn't jumped to the top yet, when many surrounding players began to attack them. The Christmas thieves turned a blind eye to them and continued to rush beneath the tower to begin climbing. Because these players weren't members of the 99-player team, the Christmas thieves wouldn't switch their aggro to them. The players attacking were players sent by the 12 guilds. Their attacks would do damage to the Christmas thieves, but wouldn't aggro them. Even though they wouldn't gain anything from this, as experts trained by the guilds, every guild gave them certain benefits, and in these moments they had to pay the guild back. No matter how fiercely they attacked, they wouldn't cause an ought. Because of the Christmas thieves' special aggro setup, these attacking players were able to enjoy this advantage. Under these attacks, the Christmas thieves quickly began to fall and golden presents filled the ground. The 99-player team gazed at the prizes with their mouths watering, but none of them dared to move. While the Christmas thieves were being attacked, the majority of the attacks were from elementalists, spellblades, and other classes with AI skills. The entire area underneath the clock tower was in their attack range. The players in the team could not enter the fields. If they rushed forward, it was very likely that they would fall just like the Christmas thieves, so their only choice was to watch. Once the attacks stopped, they would scramble for the dropped presents littered all around. Under these attacks, very few thieves were able to climb up and chase after Lord Grimm. Those who were able to climb up were obviously struck down by Ye Xiu. After dropping to the ground, their only option was to turn into a corpse. Who knew how much more efficient this was than just Ye Xiu and Su Macheng attacking? After only a short moment, the grounds beneath the clock tower were scattered with corpses. This spectacular scene made Blue River somewhat dumbstruck. He suddenly thought of the first time he worked together with Lord Grimm in a dungeon. "One wave rush. It's one wave rush again," Blue River muttered to himself. It was the same as the one wave rush that they had done in Frost Forest, and an important part of the strategy was that Lord Grimm was the powerful MT once again. It didn't matter that he had jumped to the clock tower or whatever. Gathering the aggro of all these monsters was something completely unimaginable for most players. This time, the scene was even more spectacular, but Blue River's amazement wasn't as astonishing as it was before at Frost Forest. This was because he knew of Lord Grimm's identity now. Ye Xiu. What such a revered god could do was something that they could never imagine. There weren't many Christmas thieves left. The players in the team couldn't resist any longer and began to scramble for the presents. The guild stopped their attacks as well in order to avoid damaging their friends. The final stretch would have to be done by the players. Lord Grimm also began to descend from the tower with an aerial fire. With a god descending, the players couldn't help but move out of his way. These team members would have to fight amongst themselves, but for Ye Xiu and his two friends, their gains were fixed. After all, without Ye Xiu, they couldn't do this method, and he obviously had the qualifications for special treatment. The guilds had no choice but to agree to his conditions. 415 presents. The setup was that if the presents were split between 13 equal portions, then Ye Xiu's group would earn one of them. In other words, around 32 presents were given to Ye Xiu's group to split amongst themselves. The remaining presents would be fought for by the other 96 players. If everyone got an equal amount, then everyone would obtain around 4 presents each. With the first wave over, the Christmas thieves respawned again. The 99 players immediately began to move again, and those responsible for outputting damage sat at the clock tower. Some players even suggested that Lord Grimm shouldn't leave the clock tower. They would just keep bringing him monsters and then have the monsters killed. After Ye Xiu heard this, he naturally shook his head. He wasn't an actual god. If so many monsters came, he would definitely miss a few. How could he control hundreds of monsters in one spot? That was too unimaginable. The second round was actually even more efficient than the first. The players returning would normally come back with 2 or 3 Christmas thieves. If they had to fight 2 or 3 at the same time, it might be a bit difficult for them. But if they were just running with them, then let alone 2 or 3, 4 or 5 wouldn't be a problem for them. As a result, they gathered around 400 to 500 Christmas thieves in one round and then killed them and picked up the presents. The entire process took less than 30 minutes. Everyone was extremely happy. Earning these points and rewards was unbelievably easy. Even better, the players in the 12 guilds were shooting up the Christmas hunting leaderboards, while Excellent Dynasty and the other guilds were already slowing down. Originally, they had no way of competing against Excellent Dynasty. But with Lord Grimm, everything changed. Not only on the level 31-35 leaderboard, but even on the guild leaderboard, the 12 guilds were beginning to catch up to Excellent Dynasty. Excellent Dynasty and Samsara were painfully bitter. Right now, it was as if they were picking up scraps off of the floor to eat. They had to wait for Lord Grimm and those guilds to eat their fill, and then take the few crumbs that had accidentally fallen to the floor to eat. And these crumbs had to be fought for too. After the 12 guilds sent their members for the team, and for the damage output, they even had a few left over. These players would run around Sin City, looking for these crumbs, infuriating Excellent Dynasty and Samsara. If they wouldn't even let up the pressure for those crumbs, was there still justice in this world? The King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown Chapter 289. A night without sleep, the day of crumbs, was difficult to bear. But Ye Xiu clenched his teeth and persisted. Even so, Sin City's crumbs were much worse than the other leveling area's crumbs. He could only watch as the distance between them and the first 3 places grow wider and wider, and the numerous players behind them grew closer and closer. Ye Xiu was worried, but there was nothing he could do about it. There was only a single ray of hope left for Ye Xiu. The event lasted for 36 hours in total. Lord Grimm wasn't like their guild members with 2 or 3 players changing shifts. Lord Grimm could only be played by Ye Xiu. Other players definitely wouldn't be able to do what he was doing right now. Ye Xiu planned how he was going to increase their advantages while Ye Xiu was resting, and widen the gap so far that Ye Xiu would have no way of catching up when he got online. But after seeing the other side's rapid progress, Ye Xiu was afraid that when Ye Xiu went to rest, he would have to figure out how would keep up with the other guild's achievements. No matter what though, he only had an idea. Hurry up and go rest, Ye Xiu prayed. In the internet cafe, Ye Xiu, Tang Ru and Chen Yu were all brimming with energy. It was already midnight, and even though there was an event going on, the game couldn't replace real life. When midnight came, many players logged off. Whether it was in the new server, the old servers, or the heavenly domain, it was the same everywhere. Those who were able to stay online undoubtedly won a lot of free space. At 3 in the morning, the complaints about not being able to find any Christmas thieves had clearly gone down, and Chen Guo clearly had the results to show this. She had finally gotten out of the worst of it. Sin City might be the only place in the 10th server that hadn't really been impacted heavily by this. The highest-leveled characters in the server from the big guilds were all online for 24 hours, and all-nighters were very common. Everyone online was busy playing. Ye Xiu was naturally busy also. Tang Ru was together with Sima Cheng as usual, and they were both helping him block any trouble. However, after handling Excellent Dynasty's players a few times, they no longer saw them anymore. Ye Xiu had already recognized who he was up against. Ye Xiu was allied with 12 guilds. Ye Xiu judged the hour and sized up the situation, and decided to stick with picking up the crumbs. As a result, Tang Ru and Sima Cheng turned into accompanying Ye Xiu's Lord Grimm as he ran around. This was very boring for Tang Ru. After going with him 2 times, she saw that there really wasn't anything to do, so she left and had her soft mist bring in monsters like the other players. But Sima Cheng's cleansing mist stayed behind Lord Grimm the entire time. The two talked when there were things to talk about, and when there wasn't anything to talk about, they quietly did their own things. Sima Cheng also had the ability to gather a few monsters, so whenever something sudden popped up, she could help Ye Xiu out. The players from the various guilds were no longer as excited as they were before. Their moods gradually leveled out. But when they saw their names continuously rising up the ranks on the leaderboards, they still worked at it 100%. The night was growing deeper and deeper. Even though numerous players had gone to sleep, the life of playing all night wasn't going to disappear. In the new servers' leveling areas, the competition was as fierce as ever. In the global chat, there were still those cursing those stealing away monsters, as well as cursing the trash they got from the presents, all the way until the sun rose without any stopping. At 7 in the morning, this was usually when all-nighters went to sleep. Like Ye Xiu, Chen Yehui would usually go to sleep at this time, but the difference was that his character would be taken up by someone else to continue training. But this time, when Chen Yehui dragged his exhausted body up, his eyes were still wide open. Right now, he was staring at his system messages. He didn't have Lord Grimm in his friends list, but that didn't mean he didn't have a way of knowing when the other side went offline. After observing Ye Xiu for a while, he knew that Ye Xiu often slept at 7. Chen Yehui had waited for this moment for the entire night. He decided that he would work a little harder and wait until Ye Xiu went to sleep. He would continue working and seize the opportunity while the guy was resting for a few hours to fight for the Christmas thieves. Except, as time passed, no message came. This guy. Chen Yehui felt that something wasn't right. He could persist and continue working, so didn't that mean Ye Xiu could too? This guy was someone who was known as someone who had plenty of energy. When he was still a pro player, he would also pull all-nighters often. This was also one of the excuses he and Liu Hao had used to attack him. It looks like he doesn't plan on sleeping for now. At 8, Chen Yehui saw that no message had come. His tiredness had multiplied and he was already yawning a lot. On the level 31-35 Christmas hunting leaderboards, Excellent Dynasty was already no longer on the first page. Neither were they on the second or third page. They weren't seen all the way until the fourth page. The 15 heroes were no longer standing together. They had been squeezed out. Some had even dropped to the 5th page. With the current trend, the 15 heroes might still have the chance to stand together, although by that time they would be on the 6th page. On the 6th page, they would be out of the first 100 places. Chen Yehui hated it so much that his teeth were starting to ache when he looked at their guild's placings. Excellent Dynasty was still number 1. They still had the advantage in overall points, but the distance between them and the others was no longer far. The numerous guilds behind them were catching up. After a few hours, they would surpass Excellent Dynasty. The only good news was that Excellent Dynasty wouldn't drop to the 6th page. Why hasn't Ye Xiu gone to sleep yet? Chen Yehui hated. After thinking for a bit, he called for the next in line for the shift. Immediately wake me up when Lord Grimm goes offline. He then went off to bed. He couldn't stay for the entire 36 hours, right? Chen Yehui thought like this, and believed that he could seize the opportunity while Lord Grimm was off. Could he last for all 36 hours? He still didn't have an answer, although he was sure that Lord Grimm would be able to at least last 24 hours. At noon, Ye Xiu was still in front of the computer and looked listless. However, he looked like that the majority of the time. Chen Guo had just woken up and jumped up in fright when she saw this. She wasn't able to hang on any longer at 6 in the morning and went to sleep. Remembering that the Christmas event only came once a year, she woke up and hurried over. But then she saw that Ye Xiu was still sitting there and it looked like he hadn't moved. "Did you sleep?" Chen Guo grabbed a chair and asked. "Nope." Ye Xiu shook his head. "Are you not sleepy?" Chen Guo was astonished, although she wasn't too shocked. Ye Xiu had only gone 24 hours without sleep. "I'm still okay," Ye Xiu replied. "You're not sleepy either." Chen Guo turned her head to ask Tang Ru. Tang Ru was still fighting. "I'm still okay." Tang Ru said in practically the same way Ye Xiu did. "Are you two really okay?" Chen Guo turned on the computer while saying. Meanwhile, on Club Excellent Era's side, Chen Yehui kept the event close in his mind. He slept for 4 hours and then, after waking up tired, he thought of Ye Xiu's Lord Grimm and immediately awoke clear-headed. He got up and then rushed over to the studio. No one had called for him, which meant that Lord Grimm still hadn't gone offline. This guy truly was persistent. But it should be soon, right? Chen Yehui thought as he entered the studio. He then walked over to the player using his 10th server character. Is Lord Grimm still on? Chen Yehui asked. Yeah, the other side replied. After seeing Chen Yehui arrive, he got up and gave him his seat. The player had been looking for crumbs in Sin City and really wasn't too busy. Chen Yehui sat down and the first thing he did was look at the leaderboards. He skimmed over it and discovered that his guild's 15 heroes had impressively risen up. This made him indescribably happy, because it meant that a miracle had happened. But after looking at things more closely, he wanted to cry. But no tears came out, even the gum in his eyes dropped out. Chen Yehui had even forgotten to take care of himself for his work. He had run over as soon as he got up and hadn't even washed his face. Why had their excellent dynasty players risen? It was because the other guilds in front of them had gotten more experience and risen to level 36. When they reached level 36, they would automatically be placed onto a separate hunting leaderboard. These level 36 players would immediately switch over, while their players stayed in the level 31-35 leaderboard. Their rankings would naturally go up. This situation made Chen Yehui extremely gloomy. Now that things had gotten this far, he no longer felt that he was living in the same world. Chen Yehui calculated that with their current crumb-picking pace, when they finally reached the level 3640 leaderboard, their 15 heroes would be at the very bottom of it. Seeing that Lord Grimm was still on, Chen Yehui wasn't interested in playing the game. He threw down and immediately call me when Lord Grimm goes offline. And then went to do the things he hadn't had time to do after waking up the King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown. Thank you for listening to the story on KevinAudio.com. Chapter 290. Persistence will pay off. It wasn't as if Ye Xiu didn't feel anything. Going through an entire day without rest, while playing relatively focused, made him feel somewhat tired long ago. But he persisted the entire time. His persistence would eventually pay off with more rewards. The experience gained from the Christmas thieves, as well as from opening the presents, allowed Lord Grimm, Soft Mist and Cleansing Mist to rise to level 35. The guild members also reaped the rewards and leveled up as well. The most important part about this efficiency was that it was stable, which made the 12 guilds who were involved extremely satisfied. Right now, their biggest concern was the same as Chen Yehui. It was the issue of when Lord Grimm was going to sleep. Lord Grimm, their super MT, was someone that no one could replace. During the night, he climbed the tower twice an hour on average and had yet to make a mistake. Such steady and solid playing made everyone gawk in awe. There were many players in the 12 guilds that could jump up the clock tower, but being able to successfully jump up once after trying 100 tries was also counted as being able to jump up the clock tower. As for Lord Grimm, it seemed like he could jump up 100 times and succeed 100 times. That couldn't be compared to those players who could jump up the tower. Without Lord Grimm, they had no way of conducting this sort of tactic, but staying up for 36 hours wasn't an easy task. Even though the guilds were worried, no one went up and asked him, in case Lord Grimm was so absorbed into it that he forgot about sleep. They were afraid that if they reminded him of it, he would immediately remember and hurry to sleep. Everyone harbored this type of uneasiness in their hearts. Every time a wave of Christmas thieves were killed, they all worried about receiving a message from Lord Grimm that he was going to stop. If you're sleepy, go rest. Within the game, Ye Xiu said this to Sima Cheng. He was the only one who was needed for the strategy. Suma Cheng and Tang Ru were really just there to leech experience. I'm not sleepy. Suma Cheng replied, aren't you sick? Yep, insomnia. Ye Xiu laughed but didn't say anything more. He turned his head to look at Tang Ru. This sister looked like she was about to doze off. Before Ye Xiu had come to Happy Internet Cafe, Tang Ru was someone like Chen Guo who had a strict work and rest schedule. Chen Guo, who was in between the two of them, noticed Ye Xiu's gaze and turned her head. Tang Ru, who had only just recently said that she was fine, already had heavy eyelids. It was hard to even tell if she could see the screen clearly anymore. If you're sleepy, then go rest. It'll only be a few hours. Chen Guo said to Tang Ru, I'm not sleepy. Tang Ru put in great effort to widen her eyes. What do you mean not sleepy? Go, take a nap and I'll wake you up in a bit. If you don't, you're going to fall asleep eventually. The event will keep going until 12 midnight. Can you? Sleep for an hour and then, when you're good again, you can continue until the end. Chen Guo still hoped that they'd be able to balance out gaming and rest. She had originally wanted to say, can you hang on until 12 without sleeping? But then quickly changed her words. It wasn't a good idea to say this type of challenge to Tang Ru. If she did, then her competitiveness might just carry her through. This time, Tang Ru really did look like she was sleepy. She had woken up even earlier than Ye Xiu did yesterday and had stayed awake longer than Ye Xiu. Then, I'll be going to sleep for a bit. After hearing Chen Guo's urge, Tang Ru finally gave in and went to log out of the game. You don't need to log out, Ye Xiu suddenly said. Tang Ru stared blankly. Chen Guo immediately understood. She had been sitting between them for the entire day, so she obviously knew how they were killing the Christmas thieves. It was true, Tang Ru's character didn't need to log out. She could just stand there under the clock tower and leech experience. Yeah. You don't need to log out, there's no point in wasting the experience. Chen Guo said. Tang Ru nodded her head. Then you can have my share of the presents. This was directed at Ye Xiu. Okay. Tang Ru left shortly after. Chen Guo turned her head to ask Ye Xiu, and you, can I take a day off? Ye Xiu said. For what? Sleep. You're actually planning on staying up? Chen Guo asked. You know that without me it won't work. Ye Xiu pointed at the screen and said, let's see how long you can last. Chen Guo wouldn't try and persuade Ye Xiu. I still need to smoke. I hope you can last too, Ye Xiu said. HMPH. Ye Xiu had been smoking the entire night. Chen Guo had persisted through. Seeing Ye Xiu light another one, she humphed but didn't say anything. Day was even busier than at night. The event was growing nearer to the end and the players were all focusing harder. Ye Xiu was still persisting. On the other side of the screen, many players were saying in their minds, he's still not sleeping. Some of these thoughts were filled with gratitude like the 12 guilds, while others were filled with complaints like excellent dynasty. Guild leader Chen had kept an eye out for a long time. It was already 4 in the afternoon. A new wave of sleepiness hit the tired Chen Ye Xiu, but there were still no signs of Lord Grim going offline. This guy, he's not planning on staying up for all 36 hours, is he? Chen Ye Xiu was in a terrible mood. The more time passed, the more Chen Ye Xiu felt like Ye Xiu was planning on doing exactly this. He began growing uneasy. On the guild leaderboards, excellent dynasty had already been passed. They had recently fallen to 7th place, and as the 6 guilds in front of them passed them, the 6 guilds behind them were closing in. What to do? Happy Internet Cafe. Chen Ye Xiu knew that Ye Xiu was staying there. Could he do something with that knowledge? Cut their power lines. Make a fake emergency call. Do some sort of online attack. Send people over to act like they needed Ye Xiu for something. What Chen Ye Xiu was pondering over wasn't in his area of expertise. He was just letting his imagination run wild and letting more and more ideas rise. Chen Ye Xiu had already vetoed these options. Seeing how everyone around him were merely gaming nerds who played the game the entire day, he had no way of carrying these ideas out. There's no way out. The sun was about to go down. Chen Ye Xiu hadn't played the game yet and was circling about in worry. The guild leaders had slept. When they woke up and returned to the game, they saw that Lord Grimm was still there. They were in admiration. In the afternoon, Lord Grimm had finally made a mistake while jumping up the tower, giving everyone a false alarm. Just as he was about to fall from his mistake, amidst everyone's cries, the thousand-chance umbrella turned into a rotor wing and he flew back up to a foothold. Even with a mistake, Ye Xiu had ways of fixing it, making them feel like the strategy was even more solid than it was before. At 6, Tang Ru came down and began controlling her soft mist again. She looked at her bag and saw lots of presents. Someone had clearly helped her pick them up. The probability that Chen Guo did it was very high, but she acted like she hadn't done anything. At this time, cleansing mist was no longer moving. Ye Xiu had called twice and hadn't gotten an answer. It seemed like she wasn't able to hang on much longer. Her character was still in experience range, though. It was just that no one could help her pick up presents. Ye Xiu called Tang Ru over for her share, but she refused, so Ye Xiu could only keep them for himself. Sima Cheng had fallen asleep for 3 hours. At 9, she suddenly woke up and immediately began playing the game again as if nothing had happened. In the blink of an eye, midnight was closing in. Ye Xiu moved his Lord Grimm to the top of the clock tower and let out a long sigh of relief. Finished. Even though there was still a bit of time, there wasn't any time to gather another wave. He had lasted for 36 hours. Ye Xiu had originally been extremely tired, but the instant everything was over, he suddenly felt his body relax. These 36 hours of playing hadn't been wasted. The King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown, Chapter 291 Crazy Rewards Midnight. The system announced that the Christmas event was over. From this point onwards, Christmas thieves would no longer respawn. The Christmas thieves that were still alive would no longer drop any lost presents or count for any points after they were killed. As for presents that had already been dropped, they weren't affected if they were picked up after midnight. They could still be exchanged for rewards, since the exchange for rewards continued for the entire day. The 12 guilds that had allied together with Ye Xiu were, without a doubt, the winners of this year's Christmas event. The crowd underneath the clock tower in Sin City erupted in a cheer. Their cries of joy resounded throughout the air. But on top of the clock tower, Lord Grimm simply stood there without any signs of movement. The monster hunting had been completed, and Lord Grimm could finally come down. Tang Ru turned her head to look and discovered that Ye Xiu had already fallen asleep at his table. Tang Ru and Chen Guo looked at each other. He had looked perfectly fine a few minutes ago. But in an instant he dropped dead asleep. Hey, you couldn't hang on for a few minutes longer. Chen Guo heartlessly shoved Ye Xiu awake. What? Ye Xiu murmured. Isn't it over? You haven't picked up the presents yet, Tang Ru said. You guys go ahead, Ye Xiu said, and then turned his body. He shifted positions and looked as if he was going to continue sleeping. Get up, go back to your room and sleep. Chen Guo lifted Ye Xiu up. Okay, I'm going. Ye Xiu stood up and left his seat swaying. Chen Guo watched and was also surprised. Staying up for 36 hours without sleeping wasn't anything too serious for an adult. But looking at Ye Xiu's attitude, he looked as if he would fall over at any moment. Chen Guo thought again. During those 36 hours, Ye Xiu had been doing what others couldn't do. In order for him to maintain his performance, Ye Xiu had to be focused the entire time. The exhaustion of his mind was something that players like them who were simply running around and hoping for luck could not feel. Hey, seeing Ye Xiu sway again, Chen Guo hastily got up and ran over to help him. But suddenly Ye Xiu steadied himself and shook his head, muttering to himself in astonishment. I can even sleep while walking. I'm becoming better and better. Chen Guo was speechless. She finally caught up. Are you okay? I'm fine. I'm going to go to sleep first. Help me log out, Ye Xiu said. I'll help you turn the presents in. What would happen if you accidentally slept for 24 hours? Chen Guo happily said. Go ahead, Ye Xiu laughed. He then walked over to the stairs. Chen Guo was a bit afraid that he'd tumble down if he climbed up the stairs, but when she looked again, she saw that Ye Xiu's footsteps were steady. His swaying from before might really have been because he hadn't been awake and was sleepwalking. When she got back to her seat, Chen Guo saw Lord Grimm's camera. Lord Grimm was at the top of the clock tower with a bird's-eye view of the entire city. The other players were gathered underneath like a bunch of ants. The lightning that arced down made it seem like they could be picked off at any time. Chen Guo controlled Lord Grimm on the clock tower and looked around to the left and the right, feeling a bit reluctant to leave. She had never been here before. This continued until Tang Ru gave her a look of doubt, making Chen Guo feel a bit embarrassed. She coughed lightly and asked, "Are there still any presents left to pick up?" "There are. You should help him pick them up," Tang Ru said. "Okay." Chen Guo nodded her head. She opened up Lord Grimm's equipment and looked. His 1,000-chance umbrella happened to be stopped in gun form. Chen Guo looked at the attributes and was unbelievably astonished. Thinking about how she was actually using a silver weapon, Chen Guo could not calm down. "I'm going to go down," Chen Guo said. "Go ahead," Tang Ru said. Chen Guo played a launcher. Even though she was not able to jump up to the top of the clock tower, jumping down wasn't a problem. She looked at the scene one last time and then had Lord Grimm jump down. Her character descended amidst the fine rain. Chen Guo aimed at the ground and grasped the timing. After shooting several times, Lord Grimm finally landed safely. The guild players surrounding the tower were still there. Their feelings towards Lord Grimm were somewhat complicated, but when they saw him jump down, they weren't sure what to do. Chen Guo ran over to Soft Mist to help collect the remaining presents. The other players had already finished their scrambling. The pile over there had been left alone especially for Ye Xiu's group. After picking up 10 or so lost presents, Chen Guo and Tang Ru didn't talk with these guild players and ran off to find Santa. Where'd that sister go? Chen Guo discovered that there was no trace of that launcher. "Oh, she logged off," Tang Ru said. The two didn't say anything else and gave their presents to Santa. Even though Chen Guo wasn't using her own character, she still looked at the system messages and repeatedly checked her rewards. For players like Lord Grimm and Soft Mist, with so many presents and so many rewards, they had already gone up on TV multiple times. Going up on TV didn't necessarily mean that the items they got were great. For example, purple equipment would also be announced by the system, but their value was limited. Even if they were orange equipment, they couldn't be compared to skill books. Those were unable to be traded, so even if you had money, you still wouldn't be able to get them. Ye Xiu's group had found skill books in the entire course of the event, but Tang Ru's luck had been the best. She had gotten 55 points in total from skill books, while Ye Xiu got a total of 45 points. Suma Cheng had been the most tragic. She had only found the two lowest skill books worth 5 points each, for a total of 10 points. Aside from this, there were quite a few uncommon materials and a bunch of other stuff. Tang Ru had no idea what the value of these items were, so she kept them for now and decided to tidy them up after the event was over. And the craziest rewards was experience. When the event finished, the 3 characters had risen to level 37. The other guild's players had started at a higher level, and after cooperating with Lord Grimm, their efficiency went through the roof as well. However, they had gotten quite a few less presents, so their rewards couldn't be compared to Ye Xiu's group. After exchanging their presents, they rose to level 38. As for the helpless Chen Yehui, he could only stare at the leaderboard. Their 15 heroes levels couldn't even compare to Lord Grimm's group now. When they originally arrived at Sin City for the event, those 3 were only level 31 and were 3 levels apart from them. In the 36 hours of the Christmas event, they had leveled up 6 times, while Excellent Dynasty with their crumbs were only able to level up twice. even though they did better than the majority of the players and were considered outstanding among the player base. The majority of the players weren't excellent dynasty's opponents. Their competitors, the ones who they wanted to compete against, were already 2 levels above them. Ye Xiu was helpless towards these results. Even though they were at the bottom of the leaderboard, they had fortunately made it onto the level 3640 leaderboards. As for Samsara, they had fallen to the middle of the level 3135 leaderboard. The higher-leveled leaderboard had its advantages. The higher the level, the greater the rewards of experience, gold, equipment, and material became. The rewards for the level 3640 leaderboard was much better than the rewards for the level 3135 leaderboard. It's all over. Ye Xiu finally determined that the leaderboard wouldn't change anymore. Ye Xiu let out a deep sigh. At this moment, he wasn't too annoyed because he already recognized that he had been defeated this time. The King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown Chapter 292 The Aftermath at the end of the Christmas event. The chat was filled with players announcing their rewards. After a wave of noisiness, things gradually began to calm down. When players received a notification that the event had ended, the majority of them finished exchanging their presents and then proceeded to log off. Apart from the rewards exchanged from the lost presents, the greatest rewards came from rewards based on the total points accumulated. Right after Tang Ru received her final Christmas present, she immediately opened it. With a flash of light, she earned a large amount of experience and Soft Mist directly jumped to level 38. She also received a glowing red-orange weapon, Battle Mage level 40 Glowing Fire Halberd. Glowing Fire Halberd level 40. Weight, 3.3 kg. Attack speed, 1 physical attack 470. Magic attack 355 strength plus 15. Fire Chaser skill level plus 2 attacks have a 3% chance of burning the target. Looking at the weapon, Tang Ru compared it to her previous level 30 purple weapon, the Scarlet Moon Lance. Physical attack, 330, magic attack, 250. How amazing! Even Tang Ru could tell. You actually got an orange weapon. Your luck isn't bad. Chen Guo also praised. For a player with a max-leveled account, a level 40 orange weapon wouldn't make her go mad with envy. Lord Grimm also got his final present. But when Chen Guo saw the words Christmas present, Chen Guo hesitated before eventually closing it and logging out of the game. She returned to her chasing haze. The amount of points she had accumulated naturally couldn't compare to the amount of points Ye Xiu and Tang Ru had accumulated. Yet even so, she still looked forward to her final present. Chen Guo took in a deep breath and then opened up her present. The sounds of rattling came out. She had opened a bunch of coins, but besides that, there was nothing else. Chen Guo clearly only got something very, very ordinary. Seeing the money bag, Chen Guo realized that only Ye Xiu and Tang Ru had earned a profit today. Her chasing haze had always been average. She had done her best, but most of her time was used being excited for someone else. Thinking back, even she felt that it was a bit funny. After opening her presents, there weren't any more events, so Chen Guo stopped playing. It's been a long day. You should go to sleep early, Chen Guo said to Tang Ru. Phew. Tang Ru felt a bit at a loss. 36 hours sounded long, but it actually wasn't that long. Apart from the short nap, the majority of her time was used on the busy event. Now that the event was over, she suddenly didn't know what to do anymore. Usually at this time, the dungeons were refreshed and she would party up in dungeon. But now, her usual party wasn't there. Her character had leveled extremely quickly. In the blink of an eye, she went from level 31 to level 38. Where was she supposed to go now at this level? What was she going to do? Tang Ru had no clue. She looked blankly at the game and then nodded her head to Chen Guo. Okay, I'm going to sleep. As a result, there was no Tang Ru in the corner tonight, nor Ye Xiu at the front desk. Everything seemed like before Ye Xiu had come. At 9 in the morning, Ye Xiu woke up from his bed. The sunlight shone through the pitiful window, leaving a ray of light in the dim storage room. Dust hovered around in the light ray. Ye Xiu looked at it blankly and couldn't help but think back to the rain in Sin City that had drifted like so. The crazy 36 hours had ended. Ye Xiu had only realized this now. He rubbed his head and got up, putting on his clothes, and then left the room. The TV was on in the living room. Chen Guo was in her sleeping bag and was watching the TV from the sofa with her head wet. "Boss," Ye Xiu called. Chen Guo turned her head and said with a mouth full of foam bubbles, "Woo-woo, a greeting." She then turned around and continued to watch TV. Ye Xiu was speechless. Who would think that someone who was watching TV on the sofa like that would brush her teeth at the same time? "Can I use the bathroom?" Ye Xiu asked. "Woo-woo-woo." Chen Guo got up and rushed into the bathroom. After gargling and rinsing out her mouth, she wiped her mouth clean of the white foam and walked out. "Go ahead." "Okay." Ye Xiu went in. "I didn't open your Christmas present. Don't forget to open it," Chen Guo said. "Okay." Ye Xiu nodded his head. By the time he finished washing, Chen Guo had already turned off the TV and left. The door to Tang Ru's room was open, but she wasn't there. Ye Xiu walked out and went to the internet cafe. "Morning," he greeted the employees working in the internet cafe. Ye Xiu saw Tang Ru and Chen Guo sitting together at their special computer spots. Ye Xiu walked over and said hi, but didn't sit together with them. "I'm going to the smoking section." "Okay." Chen Guo obviously wouldn't stop him. She was only been able to resist because it had been a special situation yesterday. Cigarette smoke wasn't something that she liked. The internet cafe in the morning was very empty. Ye Xiu randomly took a spot and swiped his card to enter the game. As soon as he got online, he immediately received a message from Steamed Bun Invasion, who was crying to him. "Senior, what happened? How did you guys suddenly get to level 38 in one night?" Steamed Bun Invasion added a bunch of crying emoticons. "Christmas event. Where were you the past 2 days?" Ye Xiu replied. "I was at a Christmas event too," Steamed Bun Invasion said. "What? How come I didn't see you online?" "Why would I go online? I went a drink with a few of my buddies. We got very drunk and I slept the entire day yesterday. I came onto the game to look today and everything changed. How many days did I sleep? What day is it today?" Ye Xiu was speechless. Steamed Bun Invasion's Christmas event had taken place offline. He helplessly replied, "There was a Christmas event in-game. It allowed you level very quickly. We leveled several times because of it." "There was something like that." Steamed Bun Invasion was surprised. For these types of holidays, the game often has events. Ye Xiu felt like Steamed Bun Invasion had played games before, so he should have known. "That's right, how could I have forgotten?" Steamed Bun Invasion suddenly realized and began crying as if his mother had passed away. "Hurry up and catch up." With such a gap, what else could Ye Xiu say? "Senior, I'll give you my number. If something like this happens again, call me." Steamed Bun Invasion was very sad. "Okay," Ye Xiu replied. He jotted down Steamed Bun Invasion's number and told the crying Steamed Bun Invasion to train. Ye Xiu opened up Lord Grimm's inventory. He saw the Christmas present and opened it. A flash of light. Lord Grimm and Soft Mist's points had been quite high, so the experience reward they received was about the same. With this experience, Lord Grimm also leveled up to 38. Aside from this, he also got a reward that put him on TV, a level 40 orange weapon, Shadow Claw. Claws were fighter-class weapons and were most commonly used by brawlers. The Shadow Claw was an orange weapon, so its stats didn't need to be spoken. However, Ye Xiu didn't need it to upgrade his 1000-chance umbrella. Ye Xiu immediately messaged Steamed Bun Invasion and gave him the Shadow Claw's attributes. Senior," Steamed Bun Invasion shouted. "Hurry up and level. When you reach level 40, I'll give it to you." I will, Steamed Bun Invasion yelled. Ye Xiu smiled and then closed the chat window. His Lord Grimm was still in Sin City and had a lot of items on him. He still had a lot of weight on him, and he had to get rid of it. After returning to Kanji City, he ran directly to the storage house. On the way there, Ye Xiu made sure to be careful, looking to see if he was being given any special attention from the big guilds. Don't look at how everyone had been so happy and harmonious at yesterday's Christmas event. This chapter had already closed. What followed wouldn't change. For enemies like Blue Brook Guild and Herb Garden, they definitely wouldn't suddenly become friends after a single short alliance. As for Ye Xiu, in the guild's eyes, had returned to being that dungeon record kidnapper, especially now that Lord Grimm's level could be compared to theirs, which would make them fearful once again. Ye Xiu didn't find anything unusual after observing his surroundings. When he went to the storage house, he quickly tidied it up. Even though he had a lot of materials in order for him to level up his 1000-chance umbrella to level 35, he still didn't have enough. For the missing parts, should he run to the market or should he sell some more guides? Ye Xiu thought and opened up the Dungeon Records leaderboard. He looked and was surprised. Line Canyon and Fire Forest. These two dungeons, fastest times, were quite frightening. The King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown Chapter 293 Lance Form. Level 35 Line Canyon's new record beat the record made by Misty Castle, who had used Ye Xiu's guide, by 2 minutes. The record holder was Tyrannical Ambition. Even though they also had Ye Xiu's guide, the current record surpassed the limit that could be reached by Ye Xiu's guide. Ye Xiu had no idea how they had done it. Looking again at Fire Forest's record, the current record holder was Blue Brook Guild. Their record was unbelievably high as well. Apart from this, not only were the top records astonishing, the first 10 records were all enough to make players dumbstruck. In the Christmas event, the players were all focused on the event. The announcements of records being broken would be washed away by the frequent notifications of rewards from presents. Ye Xiu hadn't noticed the intense fighting for the records during those 36 hours. Thinking of this, Ye Xiu figured out what had happened. These records had appeared because of the Christmas event. Similar to how Tang Ru's Soft Mist could temporarily have battle spirit, the guilds, record-setting teams clearly took advantage of the Christmas event to obtain skills that they shouldn't have at this level in order to create an extremely strong team, temporarily. This type of team would no longer exist after the event ended, but their records would stay. Using this opportunity, Tyrannical Ambition dropped a ridiculous Line Canyon record. Even though no one noticed it at that time, there would definitely be ways to have people notice. And the ones who most urgently needed it was Blue Brook Guild, who was able to successfully seize the opportunity and take down Fire Forest's record. The guild's embarrassing crisis could finally be relieved. After thinking of all this, Ye Xiu smiled. There was no longer anything of value that could be obtained from these two dungeons. Ye Xiu opened up Sin City's dungeon records and checked them. Sin City's records were more normal. This dungeon required players to be level 37-39. The only players who had reached this were those 99 players from Ye Xiu's team. Excellent Dynasty's high-leveled players were still in the level 36 range and wouldn't be able to participate in Sin City's dungeon competition, for now. The Christmas event awarded quite a few good pieces of equipment. The 12 guilds that had allied with Ye Xiu had already allocated their equipment to create an extremely strong team. After yesterday night ended, Sin City's dungeon record was set. The current record holder was Herb Garden. Tyrannical Ambition, Blue Brook Guild, Herb Garden. Glory's 3 top guilds fully utilized this event. It had to be said that their ability to surpass other guilds wasn't without reason. Seeing that the dungeon competition had already reached Sin City, Ye Xiu had to hurry. He hadn't yet researched the dungeon. After all, there was no way he could have known that they'd hit level 38 with this event. It would now be useful to begin his research for the guide he intended to sell. Guides, videos. Ye Xiu opened up a browser to look up materials. Ye Xiu wouldn't create an idiot's guide like concealed light. He had to find the crucial points and come up with something new. He moved the game to one side. Ye Xiu flipped through guides and watched videos while creating a new computer file to write things down in. After coming up with a few ideas, he still had to go back to the game to test them. Ye Xiu returned to the game, but didn't go directly to the dungeon. He instead went to the game's equipment editor. He didn't have all of the materials necessary to fully upgrade the 1000-chance umbrella yet, but he could upgrade a few of the forms. He had the rest of the materials from Line Canyon, apart from Illusion Swordmaster Ahang's orange weapon Scarlet Illusion Blade. 40 sandworm silk were used to upgrade the 1000-chance umbrella's canopy to level 35. The piece connecting the umbrella bones, canopy, and pole needed the extremely rare amber crystal, an uncommon material dropped by the wild boss, Cliff Ronan Alpine. The connecting piece wasn't very eye-catching, but it was extremely important. During the research for the 1000-chance umbrella, many of the tests were done for this piece. At that time, many materials were used. But after changing forms, the 1000-chance umbrella would immediately fall apart after everything was put together. In order to find materials that could be used for the different levels, a lot of effort was put in. And right now, Ye Xiu was adding the amber crystal into the template. After he disassembled the 1000-chance umbrella, he just had to replace the original piece with the new one. After that, Ye Xiu used the scarlet scorpion tails and the scarlet stingers. 8 of each were needed. At this moment, they were used to replace the umbrella tip's 8 white wolf sharp fangs. On the newly changed umbrella's tip was shown a pitch-black scarlet scorpion tail. Along the barb-like structure's back were streaks of black along with fine lines of blood red, the scarlet stingers. After exchanging everything, Ye Xiu saved the new edit and then went back to the game. Currently, Lord Grimm was still in Kanji City. Even though it was a safe zone, changing the weapon formations to check the attributes could still be done. He took out the upgraded 1000-chance umbrella and changed it to the lance form. The umbrella tip was made up of scarlet scorpion tails coming together. The backwards hooks were unevenly matched, but the 8 scarlet stingers came together creating a single scarlet tip. The attributes: 1000-chance umbrella lance form level 35, weight 2.3 kg, durability 23, attack speed 5, physical attack 470, magic attack 350. A level 35 silver weapon had an attack that wouldn't lose to a level 40 orange weapon. These stats were around the same as Tang Ru's new level 40 orange weapon, Glowing Fire Halberd, but the Glowing Fire Halberd had an attack speed of 1, while his 1000-chance umbrella had an attack speed of 5. An attack speed of 5 and an attack speed of 1 didn't mean that there was 5 times the difference. In the early days of glory, attack speed wasn't represented by numbers. Numbers were attached in order to help players understand the concept of attack speed plus 1/2 attributes to a weapon. The difference in attack speed was only 1.25 times based on the data provided to the public. This number didn't seem eye-catching, but in the game, a player could easily feel the difference. As for the difference between an attack speed of 9 and 10, the difference was minuscule, and only a very skilled expert could tell the difference. Apart from this, there was also a setup that made players sad. It was that the attack speed would only appear as a whole number. This meant that there were actually decimal places that were hidden, and this rounded up or down part could only be found through research. But in any case, no matter the difference in decimals between the attack speed of 5 and the attack speed of 1, as long as the difference between the two attack speeds was greater than 3, It was enough for the majority of players to feel the difference. And compared to the glowing fire halberd's additional attributes, the 1,000-chance umbrella was finally no longer completely blank. The level 35,000-chance umbrella had an 8% chance to poison, and an 8% chance to bleed. The King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown Chapter 294, creating a blade. Up until now, apart from a silver weapons attack, the 1,000-chance umbrella didn't have any additional attributes. It was like a white equipment. Even those green equipment from quests frequently added strength, intelligence, etc., but the 1,000-chance umbrella, it never had any. Not until now. At level 35, the 1,000-chance umbrella finally possessed additional attributes. The scarlet scorpion tails and the scarlet stingers added bleed and poison effects. Comparing it to the glowing fire spear's 3% burn chance, it wasn't hard to see how incredible the 1,000-chance umbrella's 8% chance was. After inspecting that there weren't any problems, Ye Xiu relaxed. The attributes of self-made weapons depended on the details. If the length of the 8 scarlet scorpion tails were different, or if the 8 scarlet stingers were assembled in a different way, it was possible that the weapon's attributes would be negatively affected. The current results had only been made through countless experiments. Seeing that the lance form was as he expected, Ye Xiu tapped his keyboard. Lord Grimm's hands shook and opened up the 1,000-chance umbrella's canopy, opening into an open umbrella. For the 1,000-chance umbrella, this was the shield form. The sandworm silk didn't add any additional attributes to the level 35 shield form, but the fundamental defense and ability to absorb damage had been upgraded. However, the 1,000-chance umbrella's durability didn't change. This meant that the higher the level, the more the shield couldn't be used. This shield form could only be used at the most crucial moments. The lance and shield forms had been upgraded well, but the 1,000-chance umbrella's other parts such as the umbrella bones, pole, sword, etc. couldn't be upgraded yet because he didn't have enough materials. Besides the Scarlet Illusion blade from Line Canyon, the other materials came from the level 34-36 Fire Forest. There still weren't many materials from Fire Forest in the entire 10th server, so it was quite difficult to gather them now. As a result, Ye Xiu wasn't too rushed about searching for materials yet. As for the Scarlet Illusion blade, Ye Xiu had asked Tyrannical Ambition about it twice. The first time, it was left out because they didn't accept his price for him not acting. The second time was in Zhang Xinji's bet, where the orange weapon was put up. Unfortunately, Tyrannical Ambition said they didn't have it and made up for it with other materials. Whether Tyrannical Ambition really had it or not, Ye Xiu didn't know, but he could at least see that orange weapons truly were rare. I could try and buy the weapon, Ye Xiu thought. He typed into the global chat asking to buy a Scarlet Illusion blade. The world was large, even if it was a rare orange weapon. After so many days of countless players running the dungeon, Ye Xiu believed that there should at least be a few out there. Sure enough, several friend invites were quickly sent to him. Ye Xiu added them one by one and asked. Of the 5, one of them had heard wrong. The player thought he was selling the blade instead of buying it. With a quick flip, he became Ye Xiu's competitor. Ye Xiu ignored him and asked the other 4. Ye Xiu had an idea on what the cost of the Scarlet Illusion blade was. He only hoped that he wouldn't meet that type of stubborn noob who wouldn't let go of a high price. Even though Ye Xiu didn't spare any expenses with his 1,000-chance umbrella, that didn't mean he was going to spend more than what made sense. Of these 4, one of them was only curious about the price. He didn't even say whether he had the item or not. As for the other 3, 2 of them went up and asked for Ye Xiu's price. Ye Xiu naturally gave them a fair price. In the end, one of them directly replied with a buy, as if he had met with a scammer. The other didn't reply for a while after hearing Ye Xiu's reply and was considering it. As for the last one, he directly gave a price to Ye Xiu. His starting price was much higher than Ye Xiu's fair price. This was normal, though. The seller would always try to sell it for more. Ye Xiu didn't hurry to reply and waited for the player who didn't reply back yet. In a short moment the player replied. A bit low. Ye Xiu didn't say too much and made his asking price higher. He then replied with the same price to both of them. The price was higher than his original asking price, but compared to the price given by the other guy, it was lower. In the end, the one who actively gave him a price defended his price, while the other now with a higher price hesitated again and then replied that he would accept. Ye Xiu immediately made an appointment, while sending the other one a reply saying, "Sorry, I've got another offer." That player's messages stopped and nothing else came. Whether or not he was regretting his offer, no one would ever know. Ye Xiu didn't have that much money, but he had materials. As a result, he messaged the seller for a negotiation to see whether he accepted materials. If this was a noob who didn't know about the value of uncommon materials, then it definitely wouldn't work. Luckily, it looked like this player understood, and after a bit of discussion, he happily accepted Ye Xiu's offer. The two brought their items and met up at an agreed-upon place. After opening the trade, they each put in their items and accepts. Like many other countless transactions, it ended peacefully. The two said bye and then went to do their own things. Ye Xiu entered the equipment editor. All he had to do was make the material into the correct shape. Of course, to get to this point, countless trials and errors had been made. Ye Xiu thought back on all of this with a tinge of emotion. The scarlet illusion blade had already been made into the correct shape. He switched the sword and saved the editor. He then entered the game and took out the sword from the 1000-chance umbrella's handle. Apart from the red color of the blade from the scarlet illusion blade, everything else changed. 1000-chance umbrella sword form. Level 35, physical attack 390, magic attack 440. Apart from this, there was a critical strike chance increase of 2%. This was an additional effect that was originally in the Scarlet Illusion blade and hadn't disappeared after being put into the editor. After this was done, Ye Xiu could only wait a few days for the 10th server to run more Fire Forest dungeons before he could do any more upgrading. He could then sell his guides for the items after they were gathered by the guilds. Gathering up all the materials by himself was impossible. Lord Grimm left Kanji City and headed towards Sin City. Ye Xiu messaged Tang Ru, asking her if she wanted to dungeon. Actually, Ye Xiu had the ability to solo the dungeon. However, when dungeoning solo, it wasn't possible to encounter a hidden boss. Ye Xiu considered this and decided he needed a partner. Tang Ru was currently following a guide and clearing some quests. Soft Mist had leveled from 31 to 38 extremely quickly. Among the load of quests within these 7 levels, there were naturally ones that rewarded skill or attribute points. Hearing Ye Xiu's call, she immediately tossed the quests to one side and ran to play with Ye Xiu in Sin City. At Sin City, the two met and partied up. Just us two. Tang Ru looked left and right, but didn't see anyone else. If not, then who else? Ye Xiu said. Besides Suma Chang, the other players he was friends with weren't high enough leveled to dungeon in Sin City. Okay, then let's go, Tang Ru said. When she said just us two, she wasn't doubting that the two wouldn't be able to clear the dungeon. It meant that if it was just them, then they should start at once. Sin City's dungeon was located in a prison. Sin City's residents were all criminal, escaped prisoners. This prison didn't have any rules either. The prisoners were free to roam. The quest background and the story was that there was a prison outbreak where all of the guards were killed. Their jobs were to forcefully suppress these prisoners from escaping. Ye Xiu and Tang Ru. One of them had looked at the plot 10 years ago, while the other was feeling dizzy with massive text. At this moment, how could she care to understand all this? The two went to the dungeon entrance and quickly entered it. They only had one goal: kill. The King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown Chapter 295 Word Battle. The underground prison was dim and moist. As soon as the two characters entered, they stepped into a small puddle. Water splashed onto the ground. Not far from there were a few monsters, who immediately turned their heads and rushed over when they heard the sound. The underground prison didn't give players any time to prepare. As soon as they entered, they had to fight. Tang Ru liked this briskness. Her soft mist had already dashed forward to meet with them in combat. In this dim environment, her scarlet moon lance's glow shone brightly. The two of them were more than enough to deal with this dungeon. However, the two couldn't think about creating any type of record. Ye Xiu had come to research the dungeon. Seeing that Tang Ru didn't have any problems dealing with the monsters, he let her be and continued to walk forward until he reached his planned position, where he began to practice. Tang Ru was just one person and needed some time to clear away the dungeon monsters. When she had finished doing so, she ran over to where Lord Grimm was and discovered that he was unexpectedly even slower than her. And by a lot. "What are you doing?" Tang Ru asked curiously. Even though Ye Xiu normally never tried his hardest in dungeons, he had never been like this. "I'm studying some things. You can continue killing," Ye Xiu said. "Okay." Tang Ru continued forward. Although the two were both in the same dungeon, they were pretty much doing their own thing. Tang Ru pushed forward. She turned around and saw that Lord Grimm was still in the same place and with the same few monsters. In Glory, team members only shared experience within a certain range. Soft Mist was just about to leave that range, so Tang Ru had no choice but to go back. "You're still not done?" Tang Ru asked after running over, though she didn't have Soft Mist help out. "Yeah, help me test it out." Ye Xiu had Tang Ru help him. As a result, in this dungeon, the majority of the monsters were killed by Tang Ru, while Ye Xiu was often stopped at some spot. Once he was stopped, he would be there for several minutes. With the two going back and forth like this, the dungeon took almost 2 hours to complete. After the first run, Tang Ru didn't say anything. During the second run, Ye Xiu was no longer running and stopping like he was before. He began killing monsters extremely quickly, especially in the places where he had stopped at before. When he rushed forward in those areas, he was a lot more focused and more efficient. "What do you think?" Tang Ru asked. She had helped Ye Xiu a few times and heard Ye Xiu's explanation. She already understood that Ye Xiu was studying new strategies in order to clear the dungeon faster. Not bad. Ye Xiu's research had gone smoothly. "Is it going to be used for setting records?" "Yeah, though we won't be using it." "Then what is it for?" Tang Ru asked. "As a textbook to be sold to the big guilds. They can't do it themselves, they have to rely on you." "That's hard to say," Ye Xiu admitted. Ye Xiu had pushed away the old and brought out the new in order to increase the dungeon clearing efficiency. Was he really the only one who could do this? Ye Xiu understood that this might not be the case. The dungeon was fixed. For many new players, as long as they spent some effort researching it, they all had the ability to come up with a new strategy. Ye Xiu's advantage was that he was able to use the shortest amount of time to find the most precise strategy. In Sin City's underground prison, Ye Xiu spent his morning and afternoon running the dungeon 3 times in order to determine the strategy. However, for others, the amount of effort and time they had to put in would be far greater than Ye Xiu. For example, tyrannical ambition. Tyrannical ambition could see that the guide they had bought from Ye Xiu was mostly the same as the usual strategy. There were only a few places that had been changed. However, these few places immediately increased the efficiency of the entire guide. This type of strategy gave Jiang Yu a great enlightenment. Jiang Yu obviously wasn't confident that he could compare to God Ye Xiu. However, this was only a dungeon, which was their in-game expert's area of expertise. Some of the reasoning in Ye Xiu's guide gave him some enlightenment. Perhaps they didn't need to exchange materials for his guide. They might be able to create their own guide. Jiang Yu was currently doing just that. From yesterday night till now, he had used all of the accounts he had on hand. He didn't know how many times he had run this dungeon. Only just a moment ago, he had discovered something new again and was writing it down in a document. Jiang Yu's mood was extremely good and the guide was almost done. Guild leader, it's time to eat. When the call for lunch came out from an underling, Jiang Yu typed in the last punctuation mark. Excited, Jiang Yu erased the period he had put in and put in an exclamation mark to express his mood. He saved it and then closed the document. Jiang Yu stood up with a glowing face. What are we eating for lunch? Jiang Yu didn't feel tired at all despite his all-nighter. It was all because he was feeling extremely happy. They had benefited a lot from the Christmas event and had used that opportunity to take back their lost Line Canyon record. And now it was time to take Sin City's record as well. Spring had already come for Jiang Yu. Guild leader, it's going well in the 10th server HM, a subordinate asked. Yeah, it's going well, it's going well. Jiang Yu smiled. Everyone was happy. Ever since Jiang Yu's interference in the 10th server, a dark cloud seemed to loom above the studio in Club Tyranny. Even those who weren't involved in the 10th server were affected by the 10th server's situation. Jiang Yu's repeated running into a wall in the 10th server had put forward an even harsher environment in the studio. These past few days, the atmosphere in the room had constantly been going up and down. And now, finally, it seemed like in the most recent 2 days, the skies had cleared from the storm. The guild leader had a big smile across his face, and he no longer admonished them as frequently. He would even say a few jokes for them to hear, even if they weren't funny. After lunch, Jiang Yu didn't go to sleep. He directly logged into the 10th server and contacted Cold Knight. However, at this moment, Cold Knight himself wasn't there. It was a different person who had taken the account to level, though in order to use the same account, the two people were definitely together. After a while, the real Cold Knight switched over. Jiang Yu sent him the guide he had personally researched and had Cold Knight hurry and choose players to practice it. From Ye Xiu. Cold Knight asked after receiving it. Ye Xiu, aren't we only going to use that when we have no other choice? I made this guide myself. Jiang Yu said. Oh, Cold Knight didn't dare say too much. In his eyes, Ye Xiu would definitely continue to sell his guides. The guild leader had gone to do battle with him, and so he had also created a guide, even though Cold Knight respected his guild leader greatly. When comparing the two, no one in their right mind would think the guild leader was better than Ye Xiu, right? Cold Knight still called players to get ready to practice. They had to first understand the guide well. Each member complied as they were informed. Cold Knight received another message and saw that it was from Lord Grimm. Brother, do you want a guide? Sorry, we already have one. Cold Knight replied. Oh, from who? Zhang Xinji, Ye Xiu asked. Cold Knight didn't reply for a while. The other side thought the guide was from Zhang Xinji. If he said that it was from Jiang Yu, it would clearly be lowering themselves. It was as if the other side asked if you had gone to a banquet. You couldn't proudly say that you had actually eaten instant ramen. Instant ramen couldn't help you win any sense of superiority. You don't have to worry about that, Cold Knight replied. He felt a bit ashamed. He didn't want to say that the guide came from the guild leader because if he did, then he'd feel like he'd be lowering the guild leader's name. It was a bit shameful. Even though Ye Xiu was their tyranny's rival, he was still Ye Xiu. For them, Cold Knight felt like they didn't even have the qualifications to be his enemies. The King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown Chapter 296 Can I Buy Out? Tyrannical ambition had made their own guide. Ye Xiu wasn't too surprised by this. With a few prompts to guide their reasoning, it didn't matter how good they were, anyone would want to try. After all, researching it was free. Not only tyrannical ambition but Misty Castle was the same. When he asked Hazy Mist also evasively laughed. meaning that they didn't need it for now. Ye Xiu understood and didn't expose them. Even if the two guilds researched their own guides, it would only reduce the number of his clients. This type of secret weapon definitely wouldn't be shared with other guilds, or else they would be creating more competitors. The two guilds that had previously bought Ye Xiu's guide refused his new one. Ye Xiu chose another guild. Another one, Blue River received the message and replied back. Yeah, last time you missed it. This time you should take the chance. Last time it was Line Canyon. Did Misty Castle use that guide? Blue River asked. Of course. What's the price? Blue River said. A list of materials appeared in front of him. Blue River quickly skimmed over it and replied, This, not just me, I'm afraid no one in the 10th server can fulfill your needs. The list was all Fire Forest uncommon materials. However, they had only begun running Fire Forest 2 or 3 days ago and really didn't have many materials. It's not a rush. It's not our first time making a deal. We still have trust, right? Ye Xiu said. What he meant was, you can give it once you have it. Last time, when he peddled his guide, Blue River had refused it because he had made a deal with tyrannical ambition to give up on competing for the Line Canyon record. He was clearly someone who kept his part of the deal. Even if it was a time when his guild really needed to come back, he didn't use any loopholes as an excuse to break the deal. How could he not trust someone like this? Okay, if you're fine with it, then it's not a problem. When we get the materials, we'll hand them to you. Give me a guide, Blue River replied. Give me your email, I'll send it to you. Blue River gave him his email address and then asked, Can I ask you something? How many guides have you already sold? Blue River was an understanding person. He wasn't naive. He had completely understood the guide's value and purpose last time. This guide wasn't a guarantee for the record. It was only a ticket to the competition. It didn't make sense for him to only sell one copy. Simply speaking, the 10th server records were once again being controlled by Lord Grimm. However, Blue River knew that with Lord Grimm's identity, there was nothing he could do about it. Just you for now. Oh, then, is it possible to buy the guide out? Even though Blue River knew the possibility wasn't high, he couldn't help but ask. If he sold these guides, he had 10 or so guilds as buyers. Buy out. That would mean that the price would be 10 or so times higher. It wasn't something that they could pay. Ha ha, buy out. I'm going to check the mail. Blue River saw that Ye Xiu was avoiding the topic, so he said something to break it. Unexpectedly, Lord Grimm messaged him again with a new list. If you're going to buy it out, then this is the price. Blue River was startled. He discovered that the buy-out price, which he had originally thought wasn't possible, looked possible. Compared to the previous list, this buy-out price only added a few more items. From the value of the list, it wasn't 10 or so times the price, but only 2 times the price. Such a cheap price was completely out of Blue River's expectations. No way, Blue River mumbled and scrolled up and down. That was it. There was nothing after it. Is there another message? Blue River thought. After a bit, another message popped up. When he looked, he saw that it was from Lord Grimm. What do you think? Just this? Blue River couldn't help but ask. Yeah, Blue River hesitated. It wasn't because the price was high, but because the price was too low. How difficult. If the price was high, he couldn't buy it. If it was too low, he was hesitant because it seemed like there was a trap. Even though the other side trusted him, Blue River wanted to pay him back. But as the guild leader, he was responsible for the 10th server and couldn't act out impulsively. Can I think about it? Blue River asked. Oh, how long? Is a day okay? All right, Ye Xiu laughed in reply. How could he not know what Blue River was thinking? If he was going to buy it out, then he had to look at the guide's value. Blue River would probably test out the guide, especially when midnight came. By then, Blue Brook Guild would begin competing for the records in the 10th server. If he really could set an incredible record, then buying out the guide was the same as buying out the record. Could the guide help Blue Brook Guild do that? Ye Xiu didn't know. After all, tyrannical ambition and Misty Castle had already created their own guides using similar reasoning. Ye Xiu didn't know how good their guide was either. He was confident in one thing, though. Tyrannical ambitions and Misty Castle's guides could be no better than Ye Xiu's. There was no limit to player versus player battles because people could progress and change. However, dungeons were fixed. Some of the luck was fixed within a certain range. There was absolutely a limit. As long as the limit was reached, then there was no way the other side could surpass it. Ye Xiu thought and then continued to play. He had already finished with Sin City's dungeon runs. As a result, Ye Xiu did the same as Tang Ru. He flipped through guides while doing the required quests from level 31-38. Once again, he sat in the same place the entire day, only moving to eat. At night, Caio Yifan grabbed his 1-inch ash and got online. When he looked at God's level, he also coughed up blood. Ye Xiu asked him, and sure enough, their tiny herb had their own Christmas event. As a small figure on the team, he couldn't be so free like Sima Cheng, which was why he hadn't been online for those 2 days. Caio Yifan knew about the Christmas event's rewards. He had guessed that he would fall behind in levels, but he had never imagined that it'd be by so much. The god was already level 38. The two would have difficulty playing with each other. He was currently regretting everything. If he had known earlier, then he would have handed his account over to have it leveled. Caio Yifan sighed but was helpless. There was no way he could catch up on his own. He'd have to have someone level it for him. As a result, Caio Yifan didn't really play much that night. He hastily greeted God and then logged off. He immediately contacted the substitute leveler and handed his account over. In the blink of an eye, it was midnight again. The entrances to the dungeon areas were packed with players. Ye Xiu was at his spot during the shift. Tang Ru was in her designated spot as usual. Chen Guo had gone to bed early. "Are we going to dungeon?" Tang Ru asked. She had been completing quests the entire day. Her brain was fried. "Let's go," Ye Xiu said. Sima Cheng had already gone online. Ye Xiu and the other two walked over and partied up. Currently, only the elite teams from the big guilds were in Sin City. The wild teams still hadn't reached here yet. At the entrance, he saw many familiar ids. They were all players that had teamed up with him during the Christmas event. They greeted each other half-heartedly and then went into the dungeon. 3 definitely couldn't compare to 5, but that didn't mean the dungeon would be hard. The 3 pushed forward. As the time approached 12:30 a.m., Ye Xiu began to pay attention to the messages up until 12:40 am without any news of a dungeon record. Ye Xiu was currently thinking that the first round of running the dungeon has resulted in the guilds all having made mistakes, when he heard an announcement. Tyrannical ambition had taken down Herb Garden's Sin City dungeon record. The King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown Chapter 297. I once had a guide. The Sin City's teams from the top guilds were all undoubtedly from the Christmas event. Through their final presence, rewarded experience, and a day of leveling, they were now level 39. It didn't need to be said that through the Christmas events, the guilds had obtained quite a few pieces of level 35 equipment. The members of these teams already had a full set. It could be said that the competition in Sin City had reached a new level of intense fighting. The record previously held by Herb Garden had already been a fairly impressive record. If it was simply a record being broken, then it wouldn't be too astonishing. However, Tyrannical Ambition's record of 29:34:71 had beaten Herb Garden's by nearly 3 minutes. Such a large improvement clearly wasn't possible to achieve through luck. There had definitely been some sort of trick. The world was shocked, but when Ye Xiu saw this, his heart relaxed. "Was it through your guide?" Tang Ru asked. "No." "Oh, then how does it compare to your guide?" "Slightly worse," Ye Xiu said. This was his reason for relaxing. If Tyrannical Ambition hadn't made any mistakes during their record-setting run, then Ye Xiu was sure that their guide had a few oversights and wasn't at the limit yet. As long as Blue Brook Guild precisely did what the guide required, then breaking the record shouldn't be a problem. "Then who bought your guide?" Tang Ru asked. Blue Brook Guild, Ye Xiu said. Oh, Tang Ru had learned these names by now. It was hard to avoid a discussion in the global chat. After all, 3 days ago, tyrannical ambition had been beaten full of cuts and bruises from public ridicule. But with 2 back-to-back astonishing records in Line Canyon and Sin City, they came back with a powerful counterattack. With such a record, tyrannical ambition's voice sounded righteous and self-confident. Tusk, people from tyranny are always like this, Suma Cheng said. As someone from the pro scene, she was used to calling the team's name this. To Suma Cheng, tyrannical ambition was the same as tyranny. Yeah, they're the type of people to never stop provoking others, Ye Xiu said. If their record gets beaten in a bit, where will their face go? Yeah, they're too impulsive. They could have at least asked me, Ye Xiu said. If tyrannical ambition's players had come to ask him, he could have told them that their record wasn't good enough. If they were going to brag, they still needed to try harder, or else their reputation would quickly take a blow. Suma Cheng laughed and then said, Ask you. You're the one person tyrannical ambition doesn't want to acknowledge, no? This question really stumped Ye Xiu. Whether it was tyranny's people or tyrannical ambition's players, none of them liked Ye Xiu. When Jiang Yu saw that the 10th server's team had broken the dungeon record, he leaped up in joy and celebrated with the person next to him. The dungeon run was a success, Cold Knight reported. Yeah, I saw it. Jiang Yu smiled in response. The guide had been made by him, so he naturally had an idea about what the record should be. Everything that could be done had been done. If they wanted to improve it even further, then it would have to depend on luck. In short, that was as far as it would go. We just don't know about Ye Xiu. Cold Knight wasn't as excited as Jiang Yu. Ha, the dungeon is fixed. No matter how great Ye Xiu is, there's a limit to how fast you can go. The record won't be going anywhere. Jiang Yu had put in a lot of effort into creating the guide and had held very high expectations for it. He was clearly a lot more confident in his guide than Cold Knight was. Cold Knight saw that the guild leader's reasoning made sense, but he was still uneasy. He wanted to ask Ye Xiu, but he also didn't want to appear weak in front of him. Even though Ye Xiu was a great god, as someone from tyrannical ambition, he didn't want to lower his head to him. Another 10 minutes passed from tyrannical ambition's record. The world was still discussing it and no new record came. Ye Xiu's group of 3 spent 50 minutes before finally finishing their first run. Without saying anything more, they directly went in again. Not long after, Ye Xiu began paying attention to the messages again. If a second record was going to come, then it was about time. Not long after, another announcement really did come out for Sin City. The new record was set by Misty Castle, time 29:33:46. 1 second. They had only beaten tyrannical ambition's record by 1 second. Such a small difference was a bit frustrating, but it was common for this type of competition between experts. When Jiang Yu saw Misty Castle's record, he wasn't angry. On the contrary, he laughed out loud and sent Cold Knight a message. Look and you'll know. His guide is the same. Misty Castle had bought the guide last time. Jiang Yu thought that they did the same this time too. He hadn't thought that Misty Castle would do the same as them and also try to create their own guide. Keep trying. Jiang Yu encouraged his 10th server comrades. When he thought of Misty Castle's expense in buying the guide in order to set the record, while their tyrannical ambition had relied on themselves, Jiang Yu felt superior. Tyrannical ambition didn't want to appear weak in front of Lord Grimm, but Misty Castle wasn't the same. Even though they had politely declined Lord Grimm's offer for the guide, with the new record, Hazy Mist sent Lord Grimm a message. How is it? Is this record good enough? Yeah, it's okay, Ye Xiu replied. If we used your guide, how would it be? Misty Castle asked. It would be better than yours. Really? Hazy Mist sent a grimaced emoticon. He was unsure if Ye Xiu was cheating him, so he used an emoticon to show his feelings. It's true. Ye Xiu replied with a sunglasses emoticon. Whether or not Hazy Mist believed him or not was all up to Hazy Mist. Then which guild bought your guide? Misty Castle wasn't believing it. If there really was a guide better than his, 2 records had already been made, so where was that better record? But he didn't need to wait for Ye Xiu to reply. An announcement quickly popped up. Congratulations Blue Brook Guild for setting the Sin City dungeon record time, 28:12:52. At the same time, Ye Xiu received a new message from Blue River with 2 words, "Buy out." "Do you believe me?" Ye Xiu grinned. "I believe you, I believe you. If the price isn't enough, we can add more." Blue River even asked to increase the price, showing how confident he was in the guide. The guide's price had already been cheaper than Ye Xiu personally substituting in. The buyout price was also within Blue River's acceptable range. "There's no need for that. It'll be the same as that list I sent you in the afternoon." "No problem. When we get the materials, we'll send them to you," Blue River replied. "Okay." He closed Blue River's chat window. There were still new messages from Hazy Mist. Is it Blue Brook Guild? Sure enough, your guide really is better than ours. What's your price this time? Tell me it." "Hello, hello, hello, hello. Is anyone there?" Hazy Mist sent him 4 consecutive messages. "The guides are sold out." "Sold out. You can sell out," Hazy Mist quickly replied, but when he finished, he figured out the answer. "Blue Brook Guild bought it out. There was once a copy for me, but I didn't value it." Hazy Mist left crying. Tyrannical ambitions, Cold Night wasn't as emotional. He had wanted to value it, but guild leader Jiang Yu was intent on fighting it out. Jiang Yu had even stopped caring about his work in the heavenly domain and focused on the 10th server. When Blue Brook Guild's record came out, Cold Night felt that things weren't looking good. He had previously declined Ye Xiu's guide. Should he ask him for the guide now? He didn't want to lower his head to Ye Xiu, but he was always the one who had to do all the dirty work. Cold Night was depressed. However, he hoped that the guild leader would continue being stubborn and refuse to ask Ye Xiu for help. That way, he wouldn't have to lose Face the King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown Chapter 298. Research is the key to Efficiency Club Tyranny. Game Studio. Midnight was supposed to be these players' time to work, but with another setback after only just a few days of happiness, quite a few instantly felt tired and gave up on tonight's work. Taking advantage of Jiang Yu's currently heavy mood, the majority of the players escaped. Jiang Yu was staring at his guide in shock. This guide had been made with his sweat and tears. He had thought that he had created a guide at the limit. He had been full of confidence and had shown it to everyone around him. But Blue Brook Guild's record was like a slap to his face, so heavy that his face was red. Cold Night was still worried whether Jiang Yu would tell him to ask Lord Grimm for help. But at this moment, Jiang Yu was too embarrassed to give the order. Complacency leads to loss. Modesty brings profit. Jiang Yu fully understood what this meant now. He was truly too sad. Just what was he missing in his guide? Jiang Yu flipped through his document. Here was everything he had researched on Sin City's underground prison. He could only take the blow. As the Grand Guild leader, he had to be respected. Where had he gone wrong? Jiang Yu anxiously thought. The more anxious he became, the messier his mind became. The messier his mind became, the harder it was to find the problem. Don't look for Ye Xiu and ask Blue Brook Guild. Jiang Yu even had this type of thought. He then thought again. Blue Brook Guild was competing with them. Why would they tell him their methods? How stupid was that? Jiang Yu discovered that this thought completely showed how much of a mess his mind was in. I can only rely on myself, Jiang Yu told himself. Cold Night saw that Jiang Yu didn't call for him and was very happy. The two didn't know what each other was thinking, but each of their actions complemented what the other wanted. After Blue Brook Guild completed their buyout, Blue River let out a sigh of relief, but he didn't relax. As an expert, he could also see that it wasn't necessary that a top-tier god like Ye Xiu create the guide. When they saw the guide, most of their thoughts were, why didn't I think of that? If they had been the ones to create the guide, how long would it take them? Blue River didn't know. But he did know that after breaking the record, they were in an advantageous position. Guides could be considered as research and technical development for the dungeons. If Tyrannical Ambition and Misty Castle hadn't set the record, then Blue River might not have bought it out. It was only after these two guilds set the record that Blue Brook Guild understood the value of the guide. Even if it wasn't absolute, currently, the buyout meant that they were in the lead. In Ye Xiu's guide, even if Blue Brook Guild tried to find places to improve, they wouldn't be able to come up with anything new. As for Misty Castle, they knew that there was no way they could obtain Lord Grimm's guide. With their strength, they possessed the ability to compete. But competing with the current fastest record wouldn't be easy. The opportunity had been placed in front of them, but they hadn't valued it. After losing it, they could only look back in regret. As for Tyrannical Ambition, Jiang Yu refused to compromise and continued to research. However, from his confidence in his guide, he knew that the guide was already his limit. If he wanted to break his limit, how could it be so easy? Also, his reputation was on the line and he was too embarrassed to ask others for help. He pressed forward with brute force alone and tossed and turned, but no progress was made. Ye Xiu was now much more carefree. After finishing the needed quests, Lord Grimm was almost level 39. And next, he was ready to research the next dungeon's guide. The selling of Sin City's guide had gone by extremely smoothly. With a price that even Blue River couldn't believe, he easily sold it out. It looked as if he could have earned more if he didn't sell it out, but in reality that wasn't the case. Just like how the top guilds didn't dare look for Lord Grimm to substitute in for them, buying these guides could only be known by a small portion of the guilds. It wouldn't be good if news about it were to leak out. If the players knew that the guilds were using his guides to set records, and that the guilds weren't doing it on their own, then it would be the same as before. The records would be meaningless, and Ye Xiu would then have nothing to sell. This was why it was best that these guides were slowly being spread in private. If he sold it openly, then if some evil guy waited for the guilds to set the records first and then let the secret out, it would be very bad. This time, when Misty Castle ran over to Ye Xiu to negotiate, even though he had guessed who the guide had been sold to, Ye Xiu never confirmed that the guide had been sold to Blue Brook Guild. The reason he did that was to guard against this. At 7 in the morning, Ye Xiu had finished his shift. The 10th server's Sin City dungeon record stayed at that record that had been set at 1 o'clock. After that, for the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th day, Blue Brook Guild, Tyrannical Ambition, and Misty Castle worked hard. Blue Brook Guild set new records, but the time difference between each of them wasn't too great. They were all around the same time. As for Misty Castle and Tyrannical Ambition, even though they had some breakthroughs, the distance between their records and those of Blue Brook Guild were still off by a length. From level 20 onwards, when the fight for the dungeon records began, the fighting had always been bloody. Each dungeon had been beaten, wave after wave. But this time, the other guilds looked as if they had been completely beaten. Only Blue Brook Guild stood at the top without any competition. When the 4th day passed, the first 10 places on the Sin City dungeon leaderboard were completely filled by Blue Brook Guild's team. And at this moment, the 10th Sever's top players were reaching level 40. Blue Brook Guild's name shook far and wide in Sin City, and they had learned the benefit of being the leaders in dungeon technology. At this moment, they reached level 40 and were ready to prepare for the new dungeon's challenge. The first thing they had to do was find Ye Xiu for a guide. God. Blue River sent a respect emoticon. Yes. We have the materials. How do we give them to you? Blue Brook Guild finally gathered all the buyout materials from Fire Forest. You can just send them to me. Ye Xiu said the in-game mailbox could receive practically anything apart from players. Okay, and, ha, you understand, Blue River laughed. Are you talking about the Thousand Wave Lake Dungeon Guide? Of course, of course. Blue River was somewhat nervous. He was afraid that the other side would have some unexpected reply. When he looked again, he saw a new list of materials. This. What about buying out? Blue River looked. He recognized quite a few. They were Sin City materials. They didn't have all the items on the list. Even though they had run Sin City several times, the problem was that there weren't many teams running it, so they didn't have many materials. However, when he looked at their previous experiences with Ye Xiu, Blue River felt that not having them for now shouldn't be a problem. In any case, he trusted that the other side wouldn't lie, so he directly asked for the buyout price. You want to buy it out again, this time times 10. Ye Xiu replied. The King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown Chapter 299 Big Sale 10 times. Honestly speaking, this wasn't a surprising price for Blue River. After all, selling over 10 copies of the guide wouldn't be hard to do. However, for Blue River, who had already tasted the sweetness before, he felt disappointed when he heard the price. The price was a bit too high for just a dungeon record. Blue River had a certain understanding of Ye Xiu's personality. He sighed, but he didn't haggle over the price and simply replied, "All right, give me a copy." "Are you buying it out?" Ye Xiu asked. "No, no, I just want a normal copy." Blue River hastily said, "Okay, I'll send it to you right away." Blue River was a bit startled. Why did it suddenly feel like he had bought takeout rice noodles? As he thought of this, he opened up his mailbox and found the guide. Blue River immediately opened it and studied it. The dungeon's science and technology had arrived. He had to hurry and understand it before he could begin using it. Blue Brook Guild was already working at it. Misty Castle wasn't sitting idle. They had spent a large amount of time, but they hadn't been able to create the most advanced guide. The dungeon competition was a fast-paced event. They had lagged behind in technology and they could no longer depend on it. As a result, after hitting level 40, Hazy Mist also bought a guide. After buying it, he used the latest technology while using it as a way to learn. As for tyrannical ambition, Jiang Yu had spent 4 days studying the Sin City dungeon, yet he always lagged behind by one step. Who knew how many of his hairs had been pulled off? Because of the special relationship between him and Ye Xiu's identity, Jiang Yu made things difficult for himself. When they reached the level 40 domain, he hadn't yet finished with Sin City when the new Thousand Waves Lake dungeon had come. As for the other guilds such as Herb Garden, they weren't as stupid. They were all moving towards Lord Grimm, asking him about the situation. Ye Xiu remained calm and collected when he sold his guides. He didn't let his guard down against those who inquired about other buyers' situation. However, because there was a limit to how many high-leveled materials there were, Ye Xiu would only allow trusted guilds like Blue Brook Guild to pay these high-leveled uncommon materials at a later time. For those guilds he wasn't familiar with, his list only contained materials that they had. First the materials, then the guides. If they didn't have the materials, then they could substitute other materials to compensate. In the blink of an eye, Ye Xiu sold 10 copies of the Thousand Waves Lake dungeon. The 10 guilds that had bought the guide began practicing. The record ever-changing, making people watch them hurriedly, just like viewing flowers from horseback. When they saw their times, they all mutually understood. In order to not waste their guild's materials, all of the guilds practiced extra hard. The competition for the Thousand Waves Lake dungeon was extremely intense, starting from the very first day. Tyrannical ambition was still in a knot. How could it be so incredible? The records from these 10 guilds had thrown everyone else competing aside, and their tyrannical ambition was among the obliterated crowd. After a fit of teeth grinding, Jiang Yu finally reached terms with himself. Forget about it. If everyone else has joined in, then what are we waiting for? Hurry and buy a copy. Cold Night didn't wait any longer. When he saw that Jiang Yu had finally cleared his mind, he didn't care about his honor. He directly contacted Lord Grimm. Ye Xiu didn't say anything more. If you want a guide, then you have to pay materials. It didn't matter who you were. Tyrannical ambition took the guide and immediately began researching it. Even though they had started slower, everyone had the same guide. The deciding factor was no longer on who had the guide, but rather the guild's skill level. Lord Grimm's guide as the ticket to the competition was finally in operation. Chen Yehui knew about the dungeon guide as well. No one cared as much about the 10th server records as Excellent Dynasty. He needed this dungeon guide. Because Li Hao no longer cared about the 10th server anymore, by only relying on their own guild's strength to create a guide, they fell behind as well. After thinking, Chen Yehui found a trusted aide who didn't have the guild's name to privately message Lord Grimm and see if he could get a guide. The result was beyond his expectations. This unknown character was able to add Lord Grimm as a friend. After saying what he was there for, he also got a price. The price list was sent to Chen Yehui. After looking at it, he didn't see anything unreasonable and immediately sent the materials. When he looked at the guide, he saw that it wasn't fake and secretly felt delighted. He felt he had played a clever trick, easily duping Ye Xiu. It made him feel quite good. As for Ye Xiu, when he saw that an unknown player had asked to buy a guide from him, he wasn't too surprised. He maintained his uncaring attitude and quoted the price. Ye Xiu's big sale had earned him quite a profit. As for who the records were set by, he didn't care. It was still too early to see the results. He was currently paying attention to the official webpage. The new year was about to come, and there would be an event soon. However, because the rewards from the Christmas event had been quite good, if things went as usual, then the New Year's event wouldn't be too great. Today was the last day of the year, and the day passed in the blink of an eye. The game announced a new event, which was a chain quest. Ye Xiu skimmed over the quest chain and saw that it was very complicated and was even a bit difficult. The rewards from this type of quest shouldn't be too bad, right? He immediately flipped to the rewards part. Ye Xiu looked and immediately felt disappointed. Players who completed the quest would be entered into a lottery. The rewards weren't bad, but the problem was, the rewards were all real items. In terms of rewards, Glory's New Year event didn't let players down. But to Ye Xiu, real items, whether it was a computer, mouse, monitor, cell phone, keyboard, account card, or in-game currency, held no interest for him. At midnight, the calendar flipped to a new year. Glory's New Year's event began. Analysts pointed out that, due to the event's complexity and difficulty, even though it could only be done once, it might even take longer than the 3 days allotted to finish. The players didn't dare be negligent. When the event began, the NPCs were flooded with players. Ye Xiu really wasn't interested in the rewards, but he heard that the experience from the quest chain wasn't bad, so he also joined in. No matter how difficult the quests were, if players like Ye Xiu couldn't do it, then you'd have to suspect the game company's intentions. Are you planning on giving these rewards to players or not? As a result, the quests, which the analysts had claimed would not be finished in less than 3 days, was finished by Ye Xiu in 3 hours. Soon after, he obtained his rewards, 1 yuan's worth of in-game currency, making Ye Xiu seriously question whether the profits he had earned from the selling of his guides had used up all of his luck. After finishing the quests, Ye Xiu helplessly went to continue leveling. Ye Xiu had thought of taking advantage of the event's quests. Should he make a guide to sell? Should he sell his services for the more difficult parts of the quest? The value of doing these were very low. There weren't high prospects for it. Players could do it with help from their friends. Being unable to finish the quests in 3 days was complete nonsense. The rewards from the New Year's event really wasn't bad. In these 3 days, there were frequently cries of joy in the happy internet cafe. Some even won a computer, causing everyone to glare jealously at them. During the event, the dungeon competition was as fierce as ever and leveling was as fast as ever. Among these, 2 more guilds had looked to Ye Xiu for a guide. With the materials he acquired from sales of his guide, the 1,000 Chance umbrella had been fully upgraded to level 35. The day the event ended, Ye Xiu did his usual. He got up and was about to go to the smoking area to play when he was suddenly stopped by Chen Guo. "Come with me on a trip this weekend." Trip. Ye Xiu was surprised. Even an internet cafe manager had to do this type of thing. "Yeah, to City S," Chen Guo said. "City S." Ye Xiu stared blankly when he suddenly thought of something. The King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown Chapter 303 tickets on the first weekend of every year. The Glory Pro Alliance assembled all of the pro players and host a gathering. The gathering would have many performances, especially the All-Star competition. 24 pros would be chosen through a fan vote. It could be said that these 24 pros were the 24 most popular players, with the largest fan bases. Because of this glory event, the gathering was also called the All-Star Weekend. After the great success of the first All-Star Weekend in the Glory Pro Alliance's 3rd season, the event came back every year with a different club responsible for hosting it. This year, Glory's 8th season and 6th All-Star Weekend was hosted by Club Samsara. Club Samsara was located in City S. Once Ye Xiu heard Chen Guo say that they were going to City S for the weekend, he thought of this special day and understood what was going on. "Are we going to participate in the All-Star Weekend?" Ye Xiu asked. "Yup. I managed to get 3 tickets. How amazing am I?" Chen Guo exclaimed. Even though the competitiveness during the All-Star Weekend might not be as great as a normal match, for the many fans, having the chance to watch such an exciting event was already worth the ticket price. As a result, the All-Star Weekend's tickets were in very high demand. If you wanted to buy one, money wasn't the only thing you needed. Luck played a huge part as well. "Not bad, not bad." Ye Xiu forced a smile. All-Star Weekend. With his status, he had been chosen as one of the 24 players every single year. Even this year, starting from when the votes started at the beginning of the season, the amount of votes he got was very high. It was only because he had retired midway that his name got wiped from the list. For Ye Xiu, who didn't want to be exposed in front of the public, the All-Star Weekend was an event that required a lot of interaction, so truthfully, it wasn't an event he liked to participate in. The All-Star Weekend was a performance, so the competition there wasn't very serious. The battles between 2 sides wouldn't be in an enclosed area like conventional matches. The stage was set where the audience could directly see them. As a result, Ye Xiu always hid behind the stage. His computer would then be connected to the stage by a cord. Ye Xiu was the only one who wouldn't come up on stage. In the past, his invisibility was a part of the All-Star event, and it had even turned into a type of joke. But All-Stars competition this time around would no longer have this part. Ye Xiu had managed to escape from this year's All-Star competition with great difficulty. How could he have known that Chen Guo would buy a ticket and call him to go along? In the past, he had been a participant, and this time, he would be a spectator. Thinking about this, he decided that it'd be fine, and as a result, he wouldn't decline Chen Guo's good intentions. In Chen Guo's mind, she didn't think that anyone who played Glory would refuse this type of trip. That was why she had notified Ye Xiu. She didn't have any intention of negotiating and didn't notice Ye Xiu's reluctance. She had already put in order the issue about the 3 not working at the internet cafe for the weekend. 3 tickets naturally meant 3 people. Ye Xiu, Chen Guo, and the other person was, of course, Tang Ru. Tang Ru already knew, though she displayed her usual boredness. She clearly wasn't as crazy of a fan as Chen Guo was. After Ye Xiu went online, he played for a bit and then saw that Su Ma Cheng's cleansing mist had come online. "I'll be going to City S tomorrow," Su Cheng messaged. Considering Su Cheng's skill level, there was quite a dispute as to whether or not she belonged among the top 24 players. However, the invitations to the All-Star competition weren't chosen based on ability, but rather popularity. In this area, Su Cheng was the favorite among Glory fans. From the very start of the event, she had been chosen as one of the 24 stars every time. "Yeah, I'll be going too," Ye Xiu replied. "Ah, you're going too, they found you?" Su Cheng asked. "What? Who found me?" Ye Xiu was puzzled. "For this year's All-Star Weekend, of course. Samsara hoped that you would be able to come on stage with a special invitation, so they contacted Excellent Era. The manager even came to ask me whether I could contact you. I, however, ignored him," Su Cheng replied. "Oh, not that, I have a ticket." "You bought a ticket, how thoughtful." "Nah, it's my boss. She got 3 tickets and asked me to tag along," Ye Xiu said. Oh, as a spectator." "Yeah. It'll probably feel very different, right?" "Probably. I want to be a spectator too." "Get sick again," Ye Xiu suggested. "It probably won't work this time." Su Cheng sent a sad face. When she skipped the team's Christmas activity, it was obvious that being sick was just an excuse. They just didn't bother with her. As for this all-star event, even though it wasn't an official competition, it was definitely an official event. "Sick. You'd need proof. Come on." Ye Xiu obviously understood. This type of official event was quite difficult to escape from. Ye Xiu wasn't the only one who didn't want to participate in the all-star event, but everyone still went anyways. After chatting for a bit, the two continued to play. It was just the all-star weekend. They had gone many times already. There was nothing extraordinarily amazing about it. It was just that Chen Guo had only watched the streams before and she didn't have any partners before, so she was too lazy to go. Now that she had Ye Xiu and Tang Ru to accompany her, Chen Guo got 3 tickets and prepared to join in on the excitement. A day passed and Friday came. In the afternoon, the 3 flew over to City S. They arrived at the hotel Chen Guo had booked. She and Tang Ru would be in one room. Ye Xiu was lucky and got his own room to himself. After packing up, Chen Guo shouted at them to get ready to leave. The All-Star Weekend didn't only last one day. It would start from 8 on Friday and would last for 2.5 days. Chen Guo was already unable to wait any longer. She dragged the two out the door and studied the map the entire way there. After looking at it for a long time, she still didn't understand the directions to the event. Ye Xiu was just about to say something when Chen Guo suddenly made a decision: call a taxi. But this taxi driver clearly wasn't a Glory fan. In his mind, Club Samsara wasn't a landmark. After hearing her, he stopped the taxi and repeatedly asked Chen Guo to confirm that those were the correct words. He then asked, at a loss, "Do you know how to get there?" Chen Guo coughed blood. She had called a taxi because she didn't know where it was. "It's not too far from here," Chen Guo vaguely said. It was true that it wasn't that far. She had booked the hotel near Club Samsara. Ye Xiu wiggled into the conversation. "Go along Changed Road and take a left at Jiajia Bridge. Once you get past the intersection, we'll have arrived." "Oh, there," the taxi driver heard and immediately understood. He stepped on the pedals and they went on their way. Chen Guo replied stupidly, "Where's that?" "Club Samsara," Ye Xiu said. "You've come here before?" Chen Guo asked when she suddenly thought again. "Oh, I forgot. Even though you were just a small character, you still had to be a part of a team, right? Have you been to all the clubs?" Yeah, Ye Xiu nodded his head. "Then why didn't you say anything earlier?" Chen Guo said. "I was about to." Once the taxi started moving, Chen Guo stopped arguing. The taxi went with Ye Xiu's directions, and sure enough, it really wasn't that far away. Just as they were about to arrive, the taxi suddenly stopped. The taxi driver stuck his head out the window and looked at the traffic. He opened his mouth, stunned. "Why's the traffic so bad?" The taxi driver couldn't understand the reason for the traffic jam. "See the sidewalk up ahead? You can let us off there," Ye Xiu said. As a result, the 3 got off at the sidewalk. They looked at the traffic jam. Chen Guo wasn't unhappy, but rather she was excited. Wow, wow, is this all because of the all-star competition? How exciting. Look. Yup. Ye Xiu obviously knew the reason. Experienced fans wouldn't drive to the event. They'd be stuck in traffic, and it was highly likely that they wouldn't be able to find a spot to park. Lead the way. Chen Guo waved her hands. After knowing that Ye Xiu knew the way, she threw her map into the trash can. Ye Xiu looked around left and right. He led the two, and they soon arrived. The entrance had already been arranged. Amidst the crowd of people, the three quickly entered Samsara's stadium. The esports stadium wasn't any smaller than a conventional stadium. The biggest difference was that the stage in the middle of the stadium had many electronic screens. Those watching the TV and internet broadcast could only watch as the stream chose the scenes for them. But at the actual location, everyone had their own display screen especially for them. The spectators could choose to watch from all sorts of points of view. There were also slow-motion shots for them to look at. In this type of esports arena, besides the atmosphere, they could watch from all around, which was something that those who watching the broadcast didn't have access to. Especially in the team competition, the 10 characters were all fighting at different spots on the map. How the broadcast chose the viewpoint really made the internet watchers curious. Only those at the scene could fully appreciate the competition's brilliance.